LMFAO. And no, I'm not laughing at you. I'm talking about the musical duo. Yeah, you remember them. They had us all party rocking in 2011, okay? Whether ironically or not, yeah, we were shuffling. Or at least we were thinking about it. Because party rocking, it was like the plague, okay? It spread to everyone. Everyone got it. But these guys that formed this musical duo, they shuffled their way out of the limelight just as quickly as they'd shuffled into it. You know, they were here, they had us party rocking, and then they were gone within a blink of an eye. And the question I want to answer today is why? Why? Where did they go? You know, what caused these two guys to abandon their very short-lived success when they were on the fast track to being these huge artists? Or, you know, maybe was it us, the public, that abandoned them? I don't know. That's why I'm asking the questions. I wanted to find out. And so that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be meeting the guys that were responsible for bringing us LMFAO, the electronic dance group, which actually goes way back to like the mid-20th century. We're also going to peek into the trajectory of their career as a group. We're going to try to deduce what kind of led them to fade back into relative obscurity, and we're going to figure out what they've been up to. You know, where are the LMFAO guys hiding in today's day and age? Are they in the business of underground shuffling now? We'll talk about it. Which, coincidentally, we're going to be doing pretty much 15 years exactly after their biggest song was released. They released Party Rock Anthem at the very start of 2011. Now we're just past the very start of 2026. So time flies. They say it flies when you're having fun, but I don't know. I think it just flies in general. But before we get into the actual topic today, I do just want to add my usual quick, boring disclaimers and a little personal chat as well. Please do skip around using the chapters if you really don't care, because I don't blame you. But first things first, I'm not like an all-knowing psychic. I'm just a girl with a tendency to Google everything, so please don't take my word for gospel. I will try to be as comprehensive and accurate as I can in this video, but I've gotten things wrong before and I'll do it again, and that is a threat. So don't be shy to chat in the comments, correct me if I said something wrong, please. It makes these videos so much more well-rounded and it's really, really fun to see. Also, my accent, just because it does get asked a lot, like, why do you talk like that? I talk like this because I'm me, but also because I'm from New Zealand, so my accent is a Kiwi accent, I guess. Also, if my voice sounds a little different today, it's because I am like minorly sick. I know you were probably thinking like, oh my god, is Talia okay? She sounds so unwell. No, yeah, I'm fine. I'm being really brave sitting here today and filming for you. No, I'm just a bit blocked up. Which, thank god it happened now, because also, as you're watching this, I'm probably like a day away from getting married, which is crazy, and it doesn't feel real because I have not been allowing myself to think about it, because otherwise I will get very nervous. Like, I have to walk in front of everyone. I know walking is a very basic thing to do, but when everyone's watching, you're bound to make a mistake, aren't you? I'm not a big center of attention girl. I know you'd be shocked because this channel is all about me yapping, but quite the contrary, actually. So it is quite scary, but of course I will update you on how that all goes. Although I'm not sure when I'll be back. Obviously, we're going to take probably about a week on either side of the wedding off. We can't really afford a honeymoon, so we're just going to be planning the wedding, and then seeing how long we can tolerate each other doing nothing at home until we both get back to work. And also, just in case you've missed the memo, my second channel, Talia Is Not Old, has just gotten off the ground. I uploaded a video on LPS Online, Littlest Pet Shop Online, as my first foray into the space of nostalgia, and it was a lot of fun to get to reflect on something so light and wholesome. Well, as wholesome as kids would allow it to be, but yeah, go check that out if you're interested. And also, this video is sponsored by me. I have merch. I very hesitantly announced it at the end of my last video, so now I don't have to do any big long spiel. I'm just going to say there is merch. Please don't feel like you have to buy it. It's just there. But I've done yapping about myself. Okay, let's start yapping about LMFAO instead, because they are so much more interesting. But first I want to tell you where this all started, because I want to take you on this journey with me. It was an absolute roller coaster ride, so I enjoyed it. I hope you do as well. Basically, we were on a road trip like a week ago. I was the car DJ, you're welcome, to the passengers, and I was blasting my Golden Oldies playlist, right? And then Somebody's Watching Me came on, obviously by Rockwell, but Michael Jackson is on there. Michael Jackson is on that song, uncredited. I always feel like somebody's watching me. Yeah, I mean, that's obviously Michael Jackson if you've heard the song. And so I was sitting there, right? And I was reminded that once I was captivated by the fact that Michael Jackson, widely known as the King of Pop, featured as an uncredited voice on some random young artist song back in the 80s. And he did that, like I said, without receiving a lick of credit. So why did he do it? How did this happen? Like, you're telling me Rockwell just happened to have this one astonishingly popular hit that also quietly boasted Michael Jackson as the supporting artist? Like, are you kidding? Because after that, as far as the general public was concerned, Rockwell was never heard from again. His legacy kind of started and ended there, unless you are a fan of Rockwell. And so I pondered, could this possibly have been a connection made by a record label that was meant to like boost Rockwell up in the charts? Or maybe Rockwell and Michael Jackson, were they just like buddies and Michael wanted to help a brother out? He was like, I'll be the heavyweight on one of your songs, I'll get you some radio play. But then why wasn't Michael credited for his involvement? Because of course just his name alone would pull in crazy numbers of listeners, and yet they chose to leave it off. So then I thought, maybe was the song pitched to Michael Jackson, he just really resonated with it, and so he agreed to sing on the track, but he didn't want any credit. Listen, I truly had no idea, but I was enthralled because I had no answers. And so I found answers later on. I Googled it. And what I found blew my mind for multiple reasons, but this is just the precursor of what I'm doing a deep dive into, so I'm going to cover this very briefly. But essentially, what I discovered was that a couple of my theories, mixed with a hearty helping of nepotism, all came together to make Somebody's Watching Me a possibility in the capacity that we know it, as in with Michael Jackson on the song. So in case you're unaware, Michael Jackson had strong connections to Motown Records dating back to 1968. I think that was when the Jackson 5 were signed to Motown Records, and then fast forward to 1982, Michael Jackson was obviously a huge star at this point, but he hadn't forgotten where he came from. He had remained a part of the Motown family, along with Rockwell, who was a born member of the Motown family. He was actually one of the sons of Motown's founder, Berry Gordy. So Rockwell's legal name, not Rockwell. I know. It's actually Kennedy William Gordy. But I'm not going to call him that because it feels too formal. We know him as Rockwell. So the story goes that basically at the age of 18, I guess, Rockwell decided that he would like to follow in his father's footsteps and pursue a career in the music industry. He wanted to be an artist. But he didn't want to do it off the back of his deeply connected, famous father, Berry Gordy. So he didn't use the Gordy name. He adopted a stage name. He even sometimes used a British accent to really distance himself, but that was later down the line. Anyway, he adopted a stage name, got to work. So between the ages of 18 and 20, Rockwell was just kind of pottering away at his craft, but he was kind of being discouraged by his father. So he hadn't really gotten that far. He hadn't gotten any help. He hadn't released anything yet. But he'd been working on this one song in particular called Somebody's Watching Me. Now, finally, 1984, so this is 2 years after he started, Rockwell finally felt like he kind of had, the meat, potatoes, and veggies of that particular song all cooked up and ready to go. He was like, I'm happy with this. So with that under his belt, Rockwell went to the place that was actually like his second home, because he'd spent so much time there growing up and bonding with people, and that was the home of the Jackson family. And at their house, he sung his song for them over the top of a demo recording that he brought on a boombox. And Michael Jackson, he was levels more supportive than Rockwell's father. Rockwell's father was like, this really isn't for you. Michael Jackson was like, oh my God, I love it. You're going to have to sing this to everyone in my family. I'm obsessed. This is how Rockwell told the story anyway. So Rockwell said that basically Michael loved the song so much and he really supported Rockwell to the point that he agreed to do the backing vocals for it.
Who are you going to get to sing on your song background or whatever, And I said, well, I'll see. I don't know. Right now, I'm just, we're cutting the tracks, So he volunteered. He goes, I'll do it, So the next thing I know, it was in the studio with Mike.
You think that's a song that he felt close to, that he related to?
Yeah.
Alongside his brother Jermaine, who was married to Rockwell's sister Hazel. So the Jackson family and the Gordon family were tight. Like, they were very connected at that point. And with that said, Michael Jackson obviously didn't want to steal Rockwell's thunder. He already had his own success. He didn't need to put his name on this record, and so he refused to be credited. And that's how that came about. That's the story of how Rockwell made a very famous song that happened to have Michael Jackson on it, and also how Rockwell earned his father's love and acceptance. But something much greater than all of those things came about in this Rolling Stone article that I was reading. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks when they just casually dropped a line in there that said, LMFAO's Redfoo, Rockwell's half-brother.
People say I'm crazy, just a little touch, but maybe showers remind me I'm psycho too much. That's why I always feel like somebody's watching me.
I was like, sorry. I actually did a double take. If someone was watching me, they could have read the shock on my face. I was not sitting with the information well. Because it already surprised me enough that we'd gone from the origin of Motown Records, these artists like Smokey Robinson, to the existence of Somebody's Watching Me in the 80s, but now you're telling me we went from that to Sorry for Party Rocking. Like, what steps did we take? I don't know, I was shocked that that's what they were telling me, but it was absolutely what they were telling me, and now that's what I'm telling you is, yes, that's true. That did happen. So now that you've experienced the same shocking plot twist that I did, albeit with a few more context clues than I had, considering, you know, the title of this video, I want to talk about who Redfoo really is. Like, take off your mask, Redfoo. Take off your party rocking outfit. Let me see who you really are, Redfoo. Or should I say, Stephen Kendall Gordy. You can't hide from us anymore, Steve. I mean, I'm being dramatic. I mean, he's not hiding, okay? He was never hiding, but I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Redfoo. So this fella, Redfoo, he was born on the 3rd of September in 1975, and obviously we've kind of established that he's the son of Berry Gordy, founder of Motown Records, but also a lady called Nancy Leviska is the way I figured out her last name was pronounced. So how they connected is that Nancy worked at Motown Records for a while. I think she was Berry's secretary back in the 70s, and so they dated for a little bit. That's obviously where Redfoo came from, but I also heard that Nancy started the film department at Motown around the time that MTV was kicking off, and so Redfoo was saying that she worked on the Super Freak music video. She also worked on Somebody's Watching Me, Rockwell's music video. Apparently she funded that one. And Nancy, she eventually did leave Motown Records, and she ended up working in the music movie industry as a couple of different roles. She'd be like a producer, a director. She also worked as an assistant to a Mr. Jackson and a Mr. Cube. Mr. Cube being the former name for Ice Cube. And Mr. Jackson, I thought maybe one of the Jackson family because of like the Motown connection. No, that's Ice Cube's son. Didn't adopt the last name Cube for some reason. But anyway, it seems like despite her own personal accolades, Stephen is actually Nancy's greatest pride and joy. She is so happy to be Stephen Kendall Gordy's mother. I find it really hard to say his name, sorry, because his name is not Stefan, it's Stephen. But when I read his name, it's Stefan. I read Stefan. So I'm like, hold it back, don't say it. But anyway, Stephen's mother, she goes by Momfoo online. Half of her Instagram feed is just Redfoo doing various things and like photos of his family and stuff like that. She loves being a mother. You can tell she's beyond proud of him, and she emphasizes, you know, this is my only child. So I think that really adds to it, the closeness that she feels to her kid. I don't know. Parents say you're always gonna be my baby, even when you're 50. This is an example. But we'll return to all of this later when it's a bit more relevant. All I'm trying to say is that Stephen has always been really close to his mum, Nancy. And it looks like Nancy has also been able to maintain a good relationship with Stephen's father, Berry Gordy, as well, which is great. But with that said, Berry and Redfoo weren't really close. Redfoo didn't grow up with Berry around so much. And it was really sad. He spoke about this moment that Redfoo was quite the sports player. He was very athletic when he was younger, and there was this moment that his dad was around watching him play a sports game or whatever, and they had this wee disagreement. Basically, Berry was like, you didn't listen to me. I'm disappointed that you didn't listen to me and you've played this wrong. And Stefan bit back and was like, I didn't listen to you because you're not always right. And then I don't know what made him jump the gun like this, but Berry bit back and he was like, well, if I'm not always right, then I'm not going to be your manager anymore. And at that point, Stefan, he said he had to hold back tears because that to him was on the same level as his father saying, I'm not going to be your father anymore. I think that says a lot about their relationship, I guess. So funnily enough, even though his father was the founder of Motown Records, it was actually his mother, Nancy, that kind of got Stefan into the music scene when he was younger. But with that said, his dad's connections were still pretty imperative in shaping who Stefan would grow up to be as well. Like, they definitely made an impact on him when he was younger. Sorry, I'm really struggling to speak, but I hope you can hear me all right. He's quoted as saying, he told about this time, he said, I went to my dad's party at his house and all the people were at the after party. The main person I remember was Michael Jackson. I was so tired and he tucked me in. Everybody was hanging out and partying and I just went to sleep. Him and my mum were right there and they were just talking. So like all of these people that were really big names in the industry were just people to Stephen. Being around these really, really influential musicians, say like Michael Jackson, Diana Ross, Smokey Robinson, that was just standard for him. Like, Smokey Robinson is his godfather, even. And what ended up hooking him into the music industry in the end was actually when he saw Rockwell and another one of his brothers, Terry, working on somebody's watching me. He saw them playing around, trying to make it work, and he realized it just clicked in his head that he wanted to make music. He wanted to do what they were doing. He thought that was cool. But he didn't get started right away. He still had a lot of growing to do, I think. He was pretty significantly younger than Rockwell, actually. He was the youngest brother. I think at this point he was like 11, right? So he didn't really have the means to get started right away. Especially because things weren't necessarily like peachy in his life. I mean, at home, he spoke about how things were pretty rough for a while. He had a violent stepfather that would beat him with belts and throw plates around the house, which is really upsetting that he had to deal with that. And that his experiences at home kind of led him to turn to humor. So he maintained this very honest, very comedic, very assertive demeanor out in public. He didn't do awfully well at school. Like, academics weren't really his thing, and he spoke back to the teachers. So things weren't fantastic throughout Redfoo's younger years, but he was getting through them, as you have to do. So he ended up attending high school in California, and even though he still didn't really succeed academically there, he did form a life-changing friendship. Basically, Stefan, at high school, he met this dancer called William, and William knew who Stefan's father was, so he gave him a demo of his, and he said, I hope you can pass this on to your father. And Stefan did not do that, but William didn't seem to hold that against him, and they started to hang out. Aside from that coming along, like I've mentioned, during his high school years especially, Stefan really enjoyed sports. Like, he did kind of dabble in music making here and there, but he was actually really, really focused on his tennis playing. He played other sports. He just mentioned like soccer, basketball. Tennis just really, he focused on it. So that kind of got him through a little bit, but eventually he came to realize that, school just wasn't driving with him. He knew that wasn't his path, and so he left school and he set out on an endeavor to find himself, basically. At this point, I think he was like 16, and he actually took off and went to Sweden. And when he got there, he still had tennis on his mind. He was still very sporty. Like, I don't know, his mum had gotten him into tennis when he was little. He'd been playing it since forever, and he loved it. So I guess he was so good at it that he thought, maybe I could take this professional. But in the end, he could not. When he was in Sweden, he actually sustained a wrist injury snowboarding there. I think he broke his wrist, and that, of course, threw a spanner in the works when it came to the whole tennis thing. He had to stop taking it seriously for a while, and he ended up having a lot of downtime. And that was how he got into music in the end. He was just bored. He was out of the game, and so he bought himself a sampler to keep busy, and he just taught himself he learned how to make hip-hop beats on it. And he said, basically, he just dropped tennis. He didn't think about it again. He didn't look at it again until maybe a decade later. So Redfoo eventually felt like he got everything he needed out of being in Sweden, and he moved back to the US. And it was there that he adopted the moniker Redfoo. And he said that basically, because I always thought this was like a silly name, but now that I understand the meaning behind it, I'm like, oh no, okay, I get it. So basically, Stefan said that growing up mixed, black and white, he kind of had this identity crisis within himself where people would ask, what are you? And he didn't really know. He didn't know what to say, which is really sad. But basically, to solve that identity issue, he decided to, rather than being black or white, be red. He was like, that's what I am. Whatever I say I am, that's what I am, and I'm red. And then he was trying to think of something else personal to go along with that red section of his name. And so he was thinking, like, people always call me a fool. And he tried to work that into his name. So he tried Redfoo, but he didn't like it because the L threw everything off. And then he tried out, like, this made me laugh. He tried out MC Fool That's Red. It really is about the journey, folks. Trust the process. So he called that a bit poetic. He said, I didn't like how poetic that was. It didn't roll off the tongue. And then he eventually landed on Redfoo. And that felt right. That felt like him, and so it stuck with him. He still goes by it now.
It's the dick name. Mine is the dick name because
doesn't cut his pubic hair.
Yep, and the carpet does match the drapes, and so it's kind of red. So, and I always used to talk to my penis, and I used to say, man, you're a fool, man. You crazy, man. You just try to be fucking everything. You trying to, yeah, you fool. You crazy. So I named my penis Redfoo. And I am my penis.
Right.
Because I'm hard.
Mm-hmm.
So
now, at this point in the timeline, I do believe he's about 19. This is 1994. And that was the year that he got his last haircut. So no more haircuts for Redfoo. He fully committed to the afro from then on. And he also got some work in the industry. Very, very small sort of underground work. He was co-producing a couple songs for a rapper that went by Ahmed. I'm not very good with my pronunciation, sorry. But fast forward to 3 years later, was probably the next significant thing I could find that happened in Redfoo's life. He formed a rap duo with a fellow called Dre Croon, and so they went by Redfoo and Dre Croon. Pretty simple to remember. They released an album called Balance Beam, and they kind of had a bit of a following locally. They weren't huge popular artists, but they were making some kind of splash. Eminem, before he was big news, he even opened for Redfoo and Dre Croon at the Hollywood Athletic Club, so that's a pretty cool little connection. But Redfoo and Dre Croon weren't forever. It wasn't going to be their forever gig, and so they did move on from each other. And it was not long after that William comes back into the picture. So Redfoo reconnected with this William that he went to high school with. They'd always been friends, but I mean, they got closer at this point because they kind of had similar goals in mind. So at this point, William was going by the moniker Will.I.Am. Tell me if you saw that coming, because I knew, but like, I didn't predict that. They went to school together. So Will.I.Am moved in with Redfoo and like used his gear at home, I think, while he was in the process of forming the Black Eyed Peas with Interscope. So Redfoo kind of supported him there, and then in return, he ended up being featured on one of the Black Eyed Peas' debut songs. It was called Duet, and that was released in 1998. And it's kind of vibey, I can't lie. It's not even close to the stuff that went huge for the Black Eyed Peas. It's completely different. To be fair, it's nowhere near like the stuff that Redfoo would release in the future either. So yeah, it's like a sight into a completely different world. But I'll insert a tiny little bit of his verse for reference if I can, because it's wild. It's completely different.
Ain't got honey, then you ain't got bees, and if you ain't got no money, I'ma still MC.
So Redfoo was kind of getting the ball rolling on his music career, and then apparently, from what I read, he just kind of stopped. And I read somewhere that said Redfoo was bored, and so he stopped, but I don't necessarily think that was the case, because he's spoken about later that he had a dream, you know, he had a dream to be a musician. Well, we'll talk more about his dreams later, but that was sort of the lowdown of it. He had a dream to succeed, basically, in that industry, and I guess that perhaps he might have taken a step back and sort of doubted himself, because Berry Gordy, you'll remember he didn't support Rockwell on his journey to stardom in the music industry. Same goes for all of his kids. Same goes for Redfoo. So not only was he telling Redfoo, you know, you don't want to get involved in this industry, he was also telling him that honestly, he didn't think he had a voice for rap. So you can understand why maybe that would make Redfoo second guess his path when the co-founder of Motown Records, who was also very close to you, is telling you, no, don't do that. Doesn't look good on you. And so this is where he started exploring other avenues. You'll come to see very quickly that Redfoo was a man of many hats. Music was not his only calling in life. In fact, Redfoo was inspired by his father to pursue not music, but day trading. Yeah, he got into day trading because of his father. They had some cute bonding time doing it, and then he was like, this is great, I understand it, I'm gonna do it. He did a whole segment on Mad Money with Jim Cramer, and he was just passionately yapping about his stocks, which was honestly quite fun. Like, he just seemed so into it.
I used to have 1,000 shares of Apple when it was $13 a share, right after 9/11.
Okay.
It dropped down.
Right.
But I wanted to play. I wanted to play with the markets. And so I sold all my Apple and I bought all these other stocks. And it went up to 80. Right. It did a 2-for-1 split.
Right.
Came back. And I picked up at 85 when they announced the video iPod. I picked up around 400 shares. So I have that.
I know that's a ton of money now.
Yeah,
and you held on to that.
But anyway, Redfoo, he was doing that. And while he was doing that, now this is all just my understanding, I'm trying to piece the timeline together, but he also got his real estate license. And we're not done. He also got involved in stand-up comedy.
Look at that. Boom. Laugh Factory. Ha ha! A fun fact is that before LMFAO, I did some stand-up comedy. What? Yes. Over here at the Laugh Factory. Tuesdays is amateur night. And
amateur?
Well, I used to start somewhere, man.
Okay, but did you end up being a pro?
Hell no. I mean, I did it for like a year, but it takes years, man. Not just 1 year. I would say years.
Basically, later on down the road, Redfoo said that he got involved in stand-up comedy because he was bored, he was a bit aimless, and it was the scariest thing that he could think to do because he wanted to do it so much, but he was afraid of it. And so he figured, like, man, I should do that. I'm so passionate about being funny, and if it's so scary to me, it's probably something that I really want to do, and so he did. And he kind of likened it to jumping through a ring of fire, where he was like, it was scarier to start and get through it than it was painful to actually do it. It was fine. Although he did tell one particular story about an incident that did sound brutal And I don't think I would have been saying it was like jumping through a ring of fire. I would have said it was like burning on the sun. Basically, he was at this comedy night doing stand-up, and the host of the comedy night was like, you guys, the audience paid $5 to get in here, so you paid for $5 comedy, right? But this guy just gave you $1.25 comedy or something like that. And that brought Redfoo to the verge of tears, understandably, because ouch, ouchies, ow. See what I mean about like burning on the sun, the analogy, like, ooh, but you can't get away from it. It's just hot everywhere. Yeah. So that's a bit terrifying. But I do really respect that actually he admitted that. He owned that hurt him. Just in a recent interview, actually, he was like, yeah, that sucked. I was gonna cry. Good for him for saying that. But he also said, and this is great, that it drove him towards improv comedy, and that changed his life. So he said that he used to be a very technical person, and you know how improv comedy goes, where you're not supposed to say no necessarily. So someone could be like, I am going to save you from your tower, damsel in distress. You're not like, I'm not in a tower. You're like, oh, please, my handsome prince, I've been up here for 13 years. That sort of thing. So that made Redfoo more open and more flowy, and he said that basically his ventures that came later would not have unfolded in the way they did if he didn't have those skills that he learned from taking improv comedy classes. But anyway, basically Redfoo, he was testing out all of these different methods of money making. He was trying to figure out what path he could take to be a millionaire, because that's what he wanted. But nothing really stuck with him as much as music did.
No, I thought I was right there, but I missed the music, yo.
Like, he just had this dream. He wanted to be a huge star, and he could see himself doing it. He wanted to see what it would be like to be famous, and his number one goal in life, like I said, was to be a millionaire. And, you know, what better way to do that than to be an artist, a musical artist?
I'm doing my best to just get to the top. That's my new thing right now, and I'm doing some stand-up comedy. I'm doing some music. I'm doing some rapping. But for the first time in my life, I'm trying to just build myself and become the star. I always used to try to build other people and tell them little philosophies. You should do it like this, da-da-da. But now I'm just directing all that stuff to me.
Because you'd expect as Berry Gordy's son that he'd have like a very privileged upbringing, but actually Redfoo said quite the contrary. He did not. He grew up in an apartment with his mother where he couldn't do anything that he wanted to do. They weren't allowed dogs. He couldn't get a drum set because it would be too noisy, and he didn't want to live that life as an adult. When he was in control of his own life, he wanted to be as free as possible. He wanted that freedom that being unimaginably wealthy can give you, but he just hadn't been able to make it there. So he hit 30 and he hadn't traveled the world, and that's kind of when he realized, you know, I have to change my life. I haven't traveled the world. I haven't experienced being famous. I don't have all the money that I want. And, you know, he'd grown up as an athletic kid, so people would recognize him on the streets and be like, oh, you're Stephen Gordy, you're on the basketball team or whatever. And he loved to be recognized like that. He loved to feel like he was a somebody to everybody, everywhere he went. And he didn't have that. And he really did think that music could get him there. And so that's when he dialed back into the music scene really, really intensely. We're probably talking like early to mid 2000s here, and a gap in the market picked up his call. What Redfoo said was, he said they had hip hop out there and they had dance music, and dance music didn't really have much rapping in it or much singing. It was just beats and stuff, and he recognized that that was something that people would want. Dance music with rapping and singing over the top of it. And so his vision, his drive became to fill in the gap in that market. He wanted to make sort of like dance rap music. And this is where the second half of LMFAO comes in, and that is Sky Blu. And you might be thinking, how did this guy get enlisted for the role? Because I've never heard of Sky Blu before. Well, he's also a Gordy. So Sky Blu, sorry, say his full name. So he's Berry Gordy's grandson. He's the son of Berry Gordy the Fourth, who, wait for this, this is niche, so I don't know if you're gonna understand why this blows my mind, but Berry Gordy the Fourth, also the father of Mahogany Locks. You know, Mahogany Locks, the MagCon DJ? If you don't know who I'm talking about, she was like deep in the YouTube scene. She was friends with the likes of like Sam Poroff from Our Second Life. I just always figured that she was like the average YouTuber, like a random girl that sort of made it semi-big, which I guess you could kind of say that she is, but she's also Berry Gordy's granddaughter, Redfoo's niece, Sky Blu's sister, like...
Featured PRP users. Bad Girl Tweet 3.
Bad Girl Tweet.
Who is that?
That's somebody.
That is somebody.
That's my little sis.
His little sister, his real little sister.
Yeah, that's my little sister.
You know, then shouts out to Maha.
Momo.
You feel?
What's the deal?
Yeah, so she's a featured user because she is a wonderful person.
Exactly. She's a party rocker in training.
Party rock person.
So many things made me pause here. The connections they blew my mind continuously. Update on Mahogany Locks, just in case you're familiar with her. She's still DJing now, which is really cool to see. Not doing too hot on YouTube anymore. Not really pulling the views, but I do hope she's doing well. But anyway, we're not talking about her. We're talking about her brother, her older brother, Sky Blu. Now, his name, as you'd imagine, is not actually Sky Blu. His real name is Skylar Austin Gordy. And about his childhood, I'll get into his own personal story, but specifically about his granddad. Skylar is quoted as saying, "What he's done for the world is just amazing. Man, I feel blessed just to know him. When I was younger, I didn't know. I just knew him as my grandpa, a funny old man. We used to joke around and try to beat him at every game we'd play." He said, "As I started getting older, I started realizing that I was part of something special here and I really got to learn. Grandpa gives you wisdom when you're talking to him. Growing up and being able to hang out with Rick James, all these people, they're family for us. Just being able to see the way they carry themselves, the way they talked, and just the way they held themselves was inspiration enough." And so it sounds like even though he was a grandson, so a little bit more disconnected, he did have a similar upbringing to Redfoo, where it was just natural for very influential people to be in his life. And it does sort of make sense that they'd have maybe similar recollections from childhood, because it sounds like Skylar did spend a lot of time with Redfoo as a kid. He actually credited Redfoo for teaching him about girls and rapping, so he was kind of like his guide through life. And like I said, Redfoo was Berry Gordy's youngest child, and so to Sky, Redfoo was more like an older brother than he was an uncle. I mean, there was a pretty significant age gap of 11 years between them, but that didn't sound like it really introduced any issues, and I do think that Sky probably really needed and relied on Redfoo's guidance and companionship, because his mum and dad actually separated when he was really young, and so he grew up living with his single mother for most of his life, and he ended up attending more schools than you could count on both hands. I think he attended 12 total, starting with private schools and then moving into public schools, and this is really upsetting, but at private schools, Skylar was bullied for his skin color. At private schools, he was an outcast. At public schools, he felt at home. He said that basically the kids at public schools were the ones that he was used to being around. They were his normal crowd. But unfortunately, he found himself being othered again when his peers and him as well, because he didn't know when he was little, but when they all got old enough to realize that actually Skylar came from a very well-known family, suddenly he felt like he was being looked at differently again. And so at every new school that he went to, he started to introduce himself as just Skylar Austin, not Skylar Austin Gordy, because he didn't want to be associated with it. Now, obviously, it could be hard for Skylar to sort of maintain friendships because he was moving around schools all the time, but he always found himself landing in the same kind of group at every school he went to. Very much like Redfoo, he was really good at sports, and so he tended to just get lumped in with the jocks right away. And he said he was often like the fastest kid in school, so athletics was really where Skylar's light shone, but he didn't really succeed academically. It sounds like he had some behavioral problems, and I think his mistreatment in private schools kind of drove that. It kind of changed the trajectory of Skylar's young life, because it made him think, if they're going to call me names, if they're going to say that I'm different, then I guess I'm going to own that. And so in the end, Skylar did not finish high school. He dropped out with no qualifications, and he entered maturity running in a bad crowd. He had no money to his name, not even a roof over his head, and he couldn't even afford to buy food. So for a good year, Sky said that Redfoo was actually paying for him to be able to eat anything. But even from this very young age, Sky was getting involved in the rap scene, and that would obviously prove to be instrumental for him in the future. But as well as that, he was also doing some things that weren't so great. He said later on that they could have landed him in the slammer for decades. So he's going down a pretty bad path, but thankfully he kind of took a step back after a while, and he realized this isn't what I want to do with my life. Because he said that, the trend continues. His grandfather had consistently discouraged him from joining the music industry, but all Sky wanted to do was stash away enough money to rent out a studio and make music. Like, he really, really loved to be musical. And so that became his goal. He saw himself as being a big rapper. He thought he was cut out for it, and he had what it took, and that's what he was going to do. He was going to realize those dreams. But his inspirations at this point were shifting, because at first he was looking to his peers, what kind of music they were making and what they were doing. But when he sort of left that behind, he found himself looking around for other people to aspire to be. And at this point, he found himself looking up to and learning from his funny, happy musical uncle, Redfoo. Because remember the age difference. At this point, Redfoo's like 30, 31, Sky's 20s, barely hit adulthood, and he's like this seems pretty cool what Redfoo's doing. So basically, Redfoo was trying to find his place in the music industry. He was a couple steps ahead of his younger nephew, Skylar, and Skylar saw what Redfoo was doing and he loved it. And the honest truth is that at this point, Redfoo and Sky Blu were made for each other. They had so much in common. They said that they were both kind of like black sheep in the family, in the sense that they weren't listening, they weren't heeding their grandfather and their father's advice to not get into the music industry. They didn't want to follow the path of becoming a doctor or a lawyer. They wanted to express themselves. They were creative, funny guys, and they wanted to find a way to harness those skills that they had for work. Like, they wanted to live a good life. They wanted to have freedom. They wanted to have fun. So they really had a lot in common. And deep down, Sky yearned to start a musical group with Redfoo, but he kind of perceived that his uncle was doing something else. He had different plans for himself. And so Redfoo and Sky Blu, they kind of continued to do the same thing side by side, but not together, just quietly supporting each other, until Sky played a demo of a song that he'd made for his uncle Redfoo. And Redfoo loved the song. He loved the song so much, in fact, that he finally bit the bullet and he suggested that the two of them, Sky Blu and Redfoo, should form a duo. And why would they not when their names rhyme like that? It's a match made in heaven. And so, of course, Sky was over the moon about Redfoo's proposition. He saved enough money to travel to Miami, where Redfoo was, to work with him. And from there, they started spending pretty much every day together. Like, every waking moment they were spending working on their craft, enjoying each other's company. And it really worked well. They just got along so well because, like I said, they were both funny guys. Like, they kind of based their identity around being these sporty, humorous dudes. And Redfoo said, you know, they were both into comedy. They both liked doing sketches. And you can really tell that from Redfoo's original YouTube channel. It's such an archive. There's so much on there. Skits and vlogs and everything. Like, he was really into it. But anyway, they felt like they were really sort of improving their skills together because, for example, they really enjoyed freestyle battle rapping, and that's just a bit of like goofy fun, you know, slinging these funny insults at each other, which made them better at not only comedy but also, of course, rapping and music. And I don't know, like, as a duo, it felt like they were bringing together two of their biggest passions. They were having a laugh and they were making music, and that's what they wanted to do, except they wanted to do it bigger. But of course, you've got to start somewhere. So eventually the two of them, they settled on the moniker of LMFAO for their musical endeavor, as we know.
I just had to get to do a little poetry. You know what I'm saying? Because you know it's me and Blue. Who am I? Redfoo. In the place to be. And who are we? LMFAO. Bitches!
And at this point, it was 2006. That's when the group inception sort of happened. That would have made Redfoo, like I said, about 31. Sky Blu was about 20. In their journey, it started off fairly slow, but they always had something going for them. So at the very start, it was will.i.am. will.i.am and Redfoo were still besties, and so through will.i.am, Redfoo and Sky Blu were able to meet the head of Interscope Records, which the Black Eyed Peas were signed to, and they were promptly signed after they played their demos for the head of Interscope. They were like a shoo-in for success, Interscope thought, so that was going well for them. So their debut song as LMFAO was released for radio play in 2008, which was a few months after Redfoo first applied to trademark the LMFAO logo, so they were definitely planning on taking things public at this point. And if you remember, the group kind of came together in Miami. Well, this song was aptly named I'm in Miami, with a bitch thrown in there for good measure. So I'm in Miami, bitch, was their debut song. I'm assuming that I probably cannot play you any of their songs for copyright reasons, so I'm just gonna read you their lyrics. So this one goes, when I step on the scene, you'll know me, cause I walk with a limp like an old school pimp, a real OG. I'm rocking Vans, I'm in the sand, I've got a Red Bull and vodka up in my hand. Hey, you're looking kinda cute in that polka dot bikini, girl. Hey, this is what I wanna do, take off that polka dot bikini, girl. Drink all day, play all night, let's get it poppin'. I'm in Miami, bitch. Drink all day, play all night, let's get it poppin'. I'm in Miami, bitch. Apparently this song was supposed to be like a satirical account of their experience at this winter music conference in Miami. A critic later wrote, you'd hardly know, because it sounds like they were taking themselves perfectly seriously, but I guess that's where a lot of humor comes from, like deadpan, I don't know. At this point, LMFAO didn't necessarily, aside from like their belief in themselves, they didn't know that they were going to jump up the charts and become a big name, because it didn't happen right from the word go. In fact, they had to work really hard to sort of get their name out there at first, so I guess they met up with some radio DJs, they said, and they basically made friends and sweet talked their way into having their songs being played on.
For the past year, you guys have gone from a MySpace group to being played on the radio all the time. How'd you guys do that?
Because the trick is that we were always being on the played radio group the whole time. We just happened to hit MySpace first.
Right.
We had, a couple people were playing our stuff on the radio here and there. We just happened to put our stuff on MySpace because that's free distribution.
They even did a radio interview or a couple radio interviews. I don't know. This is the one that I found.
I don't give a fuck, bitch. Play my fuck. Come on, man.
Bitch, motherfuckers,
Listen
shit
up,
asshole.
motherfuckers. I got a big dick.
Trent. Hey man, I gotta see how many beats.
Yeah, you could have broke a record.
You gonna be beeping your motherfucking asshole,
motherfucker. Shit. Don't play around.
Play that motherfucker again.
Spit it back, motherfucker.
But at this point, it wasn't really original songs that were getting played from LMFAO because they kind of hadn't released any. Like, they just had I'm in Miami, bitch. And so instead, they were putting out song remixes, and those were getting radio action, and they were getting their names out there. And while they were doing that, obviously, they were producing their own music that they intended to release in an album, and they were also kind of crossing their T's and dotting their I's legally, doing things like sorting out trademarks for their name and their logo, which didn't go so well at first. They did run into a little issue because okay, so basically there's been this whole narrative going around online for years now that actually LMFAO does not stand for what you think it does, and it actually stands for loving my friends and others. And the guys have said that, you can kind of lengthen the name to be whatever you want it to be, because I guess it's like a middle name, like nobody really uses it doesn't matter what's in there. But I can tell you what their name actually is legally. So basically the story goes that LMFAO's trademark that they applied for, it was rejected in 2008 for being, basically it was like lewd and immoral. The law was like, you cannot say that word. And so either they or their legal team, I'm not entirely clear on the details, but they had to reapply with the clarification that LMFAO actually, it stood for laughing my freaking ass off. So nothing about this is lewd or immoral. Thank you very much. And that went through. So I guess that name probably didn't go quite the way they intended it to, because I think they were looking for a pretty outrageous name to go by, but it is legally laughing my freaking ass off is the full name of the band. But if you're in the market for a little LMFAO fun fact, these very creative guys were inches away from calling themselves Two Sexy Dudes with Big Packages as their duo name, or perhaps just Sexy Dudes for short. Apparently they were getting a little bit of kickback from people about that in their circle that weren't super keen on the name, and so they messaged Sky's grandma and she put them right, thank goodness.
So I was on the internet chatting with my grandma Goodfoot 22, because there's 21 other grandma with good feet, and I said, what do you think of our band name, Sexy Dudes? And she says, LMFAO, you can't be serious, you little bitch, monkey boy. And that's when Foo comes out the shower naked for no reason, because he was dripping wet, and just comes out just naked and looks at the screen and says,
that's our name. And he goes, what? I said, we should use that. And he goes, what, Monkey Boy? I said, no, not Monkey Boy. LMFAO. That's a classic name for a band.
Right. Now get your wet balls away from me.
Yeah. Of course I didn't. And I went all over, get off me.
And somehow LMFAO does sound like the better option, so I'm glad they went with that. But anyway, these two guys as LMFAO were establishing themselves in the music scene. That's where we're at in our timeline now. And at this point, they were a super small duo. Nobody really knew their name. They were doing these tiny little gigs around LA, just trying to get word about LMFAO out there by any means possible. So as much as they came from prestige and money, they didn't really grow up in it, and they weren't acting like it. I don't know, like, of course this is just what I've heard from their mouths. It might be that they're not willing to speak about the gaudy connections that got them this, that, and the third. But from what they've said, LMFAO was kind of just like an unattended industry plant, if you will. Like, their names were significant in the industry. You'd think that they'd have some inbuilt connections, but nobody was really watering their industry plant. And from the sounds of it, it was actually kind of being stomped down. Like, Berry Gordy kept telling all of these young people in his family to keep their distance from the music industry because he thought it was going to shit. He thought it was crazy. But I guess the people needed LMFAO so much that their plant grew anyway, even in the darkness with no water. So like I said, as far as they've said, from what I could gather, from what I've read and heard from them, LMFAO's success was on them. It was driven by them. They weren't using gaudy money or gaudy connections or even the gaudy name to find fame and fortune, and honestly, they didn't want to. That's what they've said, although I guarantee that behind the scenes, going by the name Stephen Gordy and Skylar Gordy, people in the music industry are going to pick up on the fact that, oh, Gordy, that's a big name. So it might have helped here or there, or it might not have helped at all, or it might have helped all the time. I really don't know what happened behind the scenes, but I do know what they ended up doing. So that's what I'll tell you. So basically, they featured on a song with a rapper that went by David Rush. He never really ended up going anywhere, I guess, but this was in April of 2009. And the song was entitled Shooting Star, and I must say, it was like a treasure trove. It was a gold mine. It was, let me explain. So it featured Pitbull and Kevin Rudolph, and it did get their names out there, but like minimally, because none of these artists have really had their big break yet, apart from Kevin Rudolph. He'd already released Let It Rock. Let It Rock, Let It Rock, Let It Rock, you know it. But this was not it, right? If they were looking for their big break, Shooting Star was not it. But what it was kind of iconic. Because for one, it's the first recorded instance that I know of Pitbull saying, "Look up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane," which you may know that he kind of re-uttered on the 2013 song Timber that he did with Kesha. "Look up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane. No, it's just me, ain't a damn thing changed." But also, and this was significant for our topic, it's where, well, this is where I first heard the Shake That sample that ended up becoming a hallmark of like party rock anthem. That's where it was first used, you know, Shake That. It's in the song. Shake That. And like I said, LMFAO hadn't really had their big break yet at this point, but I guess people were listening to their music. They were being discovered because in that same month of April 2009, there was an article on the Las Vegas Weekly that read, "No matter how much one drank in Miami, one song couldn't be escaped. Jesse Saunders, the Chicago house music legend now living in Vegas, had had about enough. I know we're in Miami, but damn," he joked after judging a mixing competition where he started deducting points for anyone who spun LMFAO's I'm a Miami Bitch. So it seems like in a particular circle, LMFAO's efforts were paying off. Their songs were being picked up. But, of course, there was more to come. So much more to come. So, July 7th, 2009, LMFAO released their debut album. It was entitled Party Rock. Yep. You knew it. Of course, I'm a Miami Bitch was released as their first single, so it was officially released in 2009. Not just for radio play, but like as a single off their album. And by the 9th of July, they were taking steps to start selling I'm a Miami Bitch merch. Such businessmen LMFAO were, and they really were. Like as Sky Blu said about, you know, the process of releasing music, he said, "It's really important to know what phase you're in. First, you're creating and writing songs. Once you get them, you manufacture them, distribute, and sell them. Then you have to collect, and after that, you have to pay your taxes. It's also important to organize before you advertise and before you promote. Know what it is, know what you've made before you sell it." So being completely serious, they were really, really on top of the business side of things, and I think that contributed a lot to their overall success. But this is where things started taking off for LMFAO after the release of their debut album. It was kind of immediate almost. Because in August of 2009, their song about being a Miami bitch, it was used as the theme song for a Kardashian sort of like spin-off show entitled Kourtney and Kim Take Miami. Very topical because Kourtney and Kim were in Miami, just like LMFAO were, so that makes sense. And it obviously really boosted the song for it to be associated with the Kardashians. So it ended up peaking at spot 51 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was doing okay. Now, their next releases from their party rock album were La La La, which I'd never actually heard before, but then Shots.
Everybody, shots, 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 shots.
But yeah, this is my confession. I thought that was a Lil Jon song. No, it's LMFAO featuring Lil Jon.
Yeah, I ended up meeting LMFAO. I was kind of following their story, and a mutual friend of ours named Eric Deluxe, who he wrote Shots too. He reached out to me and sent me the record. And I was like, this record is a smash. But around that time, I think I first met them when we did a Pitbull video.
So I do apologize for not recognizing LMFAO's genius. Lil Jon's shouting just kind of took everything over for me, I guess. Everybody! And then in December, to sort of close out 2009, they released the fourth and final single from the Party Rock album, which was entitled Yes. And from memory, I think I quite liked Yes, and I also quite enjoyed the music video. I think it's worth noting here that LMFAO, they were on brand right from the get-go with this album. Like, you could tell they had a really clear vision, because from the music to their style to the music videos they're releasing, it was consistent with what we came to know them as being in the coming years. So what they achieved was what they were trying to achieve, if that makes sense. So the album Party Rock was doing okay for LMFAO, and the reception of the album overall, I mean, it wasn't stellar, but it wasn't terrible. Do you know what I mean? It was fine. The group were kind of building somewhat of a cult following of fans that really loved what they were doing, whether they came from reality TV or whether they followed them from like the underground sort of hip hop scene to where they were now. But critics, you could imagine, weren't necessarily overly enthused. Just as an example, AllMusic's John Bush, he referred to them as a comedy act, and he said Sky Blu and Redfoo have almost as many laugh lines in their lyrics as The Lonely Island. He wrote, they're solid producers overall, even if they run out of song ideas halfway through the album. Party Rock is an indulgent record with plenty of fun and immaturity, but a real need for a growing musical identity. Meanwhile, Paul Lester, he wrote in The Guardian, he said, their songs are worthy of a mild titter, if not a hearty guffaw. Paul wrote, really, we have no idea what to make of them or how to respond, whether to laugh our asses off at the brilliant bouncy bass lines or cry at the banality of the messages. But, he clarified, and this is where the name sort of comes in, because people knew, even though they weren't using their names, they knew they were Gordies. So Paul said, you've got to take them a bit seriously. They've had a bazillion hits on their MySpace, a sign of the times. But he said one or the other of them is apparently the grandson of Motown founder Berry Gordy. So they weren't quite sure, but they knew there was something there. And guest artists on their will.i.am produced album include Little John, Kanye West, Katy Perry, Lady Gaga, and Chris Cornell, as well as obviously Black Eyed Peas and Fergie. So I don't know if this is just because they were really good at making friends and they just happened to know some people in the industry and have those connections, or whether it was the Gordy name, but somehow they had all of this going for them and it was just their debut album. Do you know what I mean? You can't say they didn't put the work in, because they did to some extent. They were doing these little gigs and stuff like that, networking, but did they have a helping hand up? Perhaps. But anyway, Paul closed this sort of paragraph or whatever by saying, they've even collaborated with Chris Rock on a track called Smack Her With a Dick, which is true. I discovered they did do that. They turned a Chris Rock stand-up segment into a song known as the Redfoo mash of Smack Her With a Dick. This crossover is actually documented in the first ever video on the aforementioned archaic Redfoo YouTube channel, so that's quite fun. It was way back in 2007, actually. So, quite old. That was almost 20 years ago, team. Isn't that scary? So at this point as well, like we're talking sort of later towards the end of 2009, LMFAO's songs were becoming quite the staple on reality TV. So there was another song of theirs entitled Get Crazy. That ended up being used as the theme song of Jersey Shore. So I think that song ended up being quite like famous, well known amongst Jersey Shore fans, but it's not necessarily common knowledge that LMFAO produced and sung that song. So that's another little LMFAO fun fact. And also they featured in a reality show. So on episode 7 of season 22 of The Real World Cancun, yeah, LMFAO were in that. Cool, right? I couldn't find the episode to save my life, which is really annoying because I would have loved to see what they were like on there, but I know that they did really embrace these crossovers that they were doing with reality TV, especially because they had one of the stars of The Real World Cancun, her name was Jonah? Can't remember, sorry, but they featured her as the love interest in their music video for their second single, La La La. And they just blended really well into the world of reality TV, especially back then. I think a lot of people would agree that LMFAO's music matched the vibe that reality TV was giving off. And so Redfoo and Sky Blu, LMFAO, they were really liked within that space by the stars of reality TV shows and the fans alike. Like, they were getting glowing reviews of their music and their characters because people just gelled with them. For example, there was this star on The Real World Cancun that was called, I think her name was like Jasmine Reynolds. She wrote on her blog, which again is like a sign of the times, but she basically wrote about like how awesome and chill and funny Redfoo and Sky Blu were. She said they do this thing called tagging. I put LMFAO stickers on random people. They were not demanding or rude at all. They like to hang by the pool with us and drink and have fun. And she said watching them perform at the City was amazing. I was like, wow, their songs were good and catchy. After 2 days, I knew every last word. So at this point, not only were LMFAO getting quite popular, they were also living, quite literally, their best lives. Like, they were living out their dreams, because the brand that they were creating for their duo actually reflected the lives that they wanted to lead. They weren't like playing into that whole party aspect for kicks or anything like that. They genuinely were like these silly party boy pranksters. They liked to have fun. They loved the look of women, but they didn't necessarily care that much about keeping women around at this point.
This is the wall of fame right here. We got a different array of panties right here, all different colors, all different sizes, all different. Now the big green ones is not mine. In order to get a panty up here, you must do the do. You must do the wazoo. You know what I mean? You do the smell test. That's authentic.
How many chicks do you guys go through while you're on tour?
Shit, man. How many cigarettes do you smoke a day?
A pack.
A pack? Go through a pack of them, baby.
Go through a pack of chicks, man.
Redfoo said, I am pretty much as single as I can get. I enjoy meeting a new person, but after you do it in the bathtub, the kitchen, etc., what else can you do? I would rather have my music career as my number one priority and wife. A lovely statement from Redfoo. So anyway, these guys, Redfoo and Sky Blu, continued their well-established at this point, sort of like bitches get money lifestyle into 2010. And 2010 did bring a decent amount of success for LMFAO, but unfortunately, Redfoo did stop vlogging as much as a result of that, which was a real shame to find out because his vlogs were so fun. I mean, I only watched like 2 or 3 of them, but anyway. In 2010, business really started taking off for the LMFAO guys. They were riding all of their success from the year prior and sort of rolling it over into the new year. So LMFAO, they featured in David Guetta and Chris Willis's song. It was called Getting Over You, and also Fergie was in it. And they opened for the Black Eyed Peas World Tour as well. So they were pretty busy, still very successful with their connections. But they did make an enemy accidentally. Basically, in March of 2010, Sky Blu, he made news for getting in a scuffle with presidential candidate Mitt Romney. And they didn't know who the other person was. Neither of them were clued in to that. So it was a very awkward sort of encounter. But basically, Mitt said that rapper Sky Blu ignored the instruction we've all heard 10,000 times to put his seat back upright in an airplane. And so this article says the former Massachusetts governor tapped him on the shoulder and reminded him of that direction. He needed to put his seat up.
I'm trying to just adjust myself so I can go to sleep because I'm very tired, you know what I mean? So I get in here, I get my new party rock jacket, I put it over me, I start to sleep, and I was just too upright. So boom, lean back, and like Fat Joe. And I just hear this guy, he's, sir, put your seat up. And it was pretty hostile. I was like, dang, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I thought it was a flight attendant at first, right? So I took my jacket off my head and I looked back and he says, again, sir, put your seat up. Even more, a little louder, a little more angry towards me. And I was like, are you serious? What did I do to you? You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you ask nicely, I'll put it up. But with that, we're going to address how you're talking to me. I mean, I don't understand that. And then, you know, I'm looking at him and then all of a sudden I see him reach over and he grabs my shoulder. Sir, put your seat up. And I just react, boom, you know, get off of me, you know? And I didn't take it any further than that. I just wanted the man not to touch me, not to grab me, you know what I mean? Put a condor grip on me. What am I supposed to do? You know?
I mean, that's like a Vulcan grip.
Like a Vulcan grip, you know? I'm not your prey. I'm not a salmon going upstream. You're not going to grip me up. But, so boom, so that happens. And then, you know, his wife screams. I assume the lady to his right or left is his wife. So she screams, they scream, get the flight attendant, they're getting loud. So then the flight attendant comes over, and then I try to get loud, like louder than them to plead my case. Like, no, the man assaulted me. You know, I was protecting myself. You know, might have threw a few cuss words in there because.
Well, you did. Now, what did they do? They did turn around.
So they turned around, and I think we have some footage of me getting up when they stopped the plane. The police boarded.
Is there anybody else with you?
No, I'm even fine.
Okay, let's go outside. We'll talk outside.
When we got to the gate, you know, outside the plane, they arrested me. And then I couldn't talk to them. They're like, you know, I'm like, wow, I mean, can I just at least tell you my side of the story here? You know what I mean?
But what did he say to the people?
What do you mean?
What did he say to the coppers or the police or whatever?
Well, I wasn't in there to know what he said to the police.
Okay.
I just know that when they came out and the police was like, yeah, he did admit touching him or touching him first or whatever they said.
Now, I talked to the man.
Okay.
I didn't know it was the governor at the time. I would have asked him, you know what I'm saying, to free my people and things of this nature. But I didn't know that, so I just said to my man, I said, now look, what's going on? And the guy like cut me off mid, and he said, hey, I'm all cool, everything's good with me. You know, I said, yeah, because we got a show, you know, we're a band and stuff. We need to get back to LA, so, and he's like, hey, I'm cool with the stuff. We squashed it. So I say, let's fly around. And you know what they did to the stewardess? Because I asked the stewardess. I said, because I didn't know. I'm in the front. And I asked the stewardess, I said, okay, we're turning the plane around. I got that. But why are you letting them sit next to each other still? Why don't you just separate them? You know what I mean? Because I didn't know what was going on.
Well, you know what happened after the incident happened, we were turning around and stuff like that. Me and Mitt, I don't know what his name is, but we talked. And, you know, we just diffused the situation, and I'm sure he's a nice guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're nice guys, you know? And it was just an unfortunate situation that happened.
So in the end, Mitt Romney joked that Sky gave a good swat and broke my hair. I guess he used a lot of, like, hairspray or something, like gel or something to keep his hair in place. I don't know. It was funny. People thought it was funny. And Sky said, I have no hard feelings against him. I'm sure he was a good dude. Redfoo asked Sky, like, would you vote for Mitt Romney? And Sky responded, no, because I'm a Democrat and he's a Republican. And then Redfoo questioned whether it would be drinking buddies with Mitt Romney instead. And Sky said, if he drinks. So that was the end of their drama for the year, I guess. As far as, you know, like personal updates and stuff that I could find, Redfoo did stop by in June of 2010 to inform his YouTube audience, for one, that he did not get the iPhone 4.0. It's so weird to be going this far back in time and like remember living through those years, but he said that there was a tremendous line. This is what he said.
First of all, I ain't got the iPhone 4.0 because there was a tremendous line. This is not a roller coaster. It's just a phone.
It's not a ride. You can't ride. You can't sit on it.
Can't sit on. Well, they have that vibration thing.
You use that? That's weird.
I have.
Next, he said that they had a show in Vegas coming up next month, and they'd also released new Party Rock merch. Very exciting. And then they addressed this persistent problem that they were having with people leaking their unreleased songs, even when they weren't actually their songs. I'll put in the clip of him explaining it, because that was weird.
There was a song that got leaked out because the hackers, which is our friends, which I don't know why they keep hacking.
Oh, no. It's your friends.
Well, they're my friends, not
my friend. I'm not getting caught up in that.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're not. I don't know them as friends, but I'm friendly with them because they're just diehard fans, and they go and they try to break into our mailboxes, which they succeeded. But
They didn't get me.
No, they didn't get him. They got me. They said, click on this. This is a big-ass booty. I said, oh, shit. Click, and my whole computer. They got in. They got in, but I got out. So they released a song called Sucks to Be You, and they just wrote LMFAO, but we didn't produce that song. No. We didn't make that song. We sent those lyrics as an idea to our homeboy Clinton Sparks,
That's right.
And he was working on some stuff. He didn't even tell us that he was working on some stuff, and all of a sudden the song comes out, DJ's like, I like your new song. It's not our song. You know what I mean? You know, I love Clinton Sparks stuff. And we're going to do something with that, but that's not officially what we're saying, hey, this is us, you know, that was Clinton Sparks' production, and Sucks to Be You. I mean, you know, I like it, you know. I just want, you know, the world to just know what we're putting forth and saying, this is our new stuff, you know. Whether it could be the best song, it could be number one. I'd still say, oh no, okay, that's cool.
We got that authorized. You know, we got to sign off.
And that year on Redfoo's original YouTube channel, we were also treated to the video Drunk Bitch Dissing Euros at Mel's Dinner.
Fuck you! Fucking come here! The beauty of America, say whatever the hell we want, and now...
Tell it to the people. Talk to the people. Hey. Hey, baby.
I feel like that could have just stayed on his phone. I don't know if that needed uploaded. And then there was this other newsletter update that they did with slightly better production quality. It was just as rambly, just as much chaotic energy. It just looked a little bit nicer and sounded a little bit nicer. But basically, Redfoo did this wee like home studio tour. He spoke about how they got to perform with Dirt Nasty. He said that was a lot of fun, and that was it, basically. Well, that was it, anyway, until Sorry for Party Rocking was first mentioned. It was on Redfoo's channel that I saw this first mentioned in October of 2010. And he uploaded this video. It was entitled #Sorry for Party Rocking. And it was very much like an old YouTube skit.
We're having a meeting! We're having a meeting, and you're on your YouTube watching. Are you serious? You just woke up? What are you doing, man? You
know what? No, I'm sorry. Sorry for party rocking.
So Dre's Wednesdays.
Salsa.
I mean,
But basically, the reason he posted that was as a request for people to send in their own Sorry for Party Rocking videos to sorryforpartyrocking.com. Or he said you could also put them under the Sorry for Party Rocking hashtag on Twitter. And I did try to find some videos, like some clips of people playing into this, but they don't seem to have either been done or they don't exist anymore. So all I found was this Redfoo tweet, which just really delighted me to the point that I thought, yeah, I'll put that in. It said, I grabbed her ass. She said, say you're sorry. I said, hashtag sorry for party rocking, you bitch. Really building up the hype. Go Redfoo. Awesome way to market your song. But anyway, then in December was the next time I saw that he tweeted about Sorry for Party Rocking. He said, yes, babies. LMFAO's new single, Party Rock Anthem, is dropping New Year's Eve. Stay tuned for free download. At Interscope, hashtag sorry for party rocking. So basically, I need to explain that Party Rock Anthem was the first single for LMFAO's upcoming album, Sorry for Party Rocking. Now that I've explained that, I can say that true to his word, Party Rock Anthem did release in time for party rockers to see in the new year with it. They brought party rock to the house on New Year's Eve night. And they were really trying to push this song. They encouraged fans to participate in a shuffling contest to boost the song.
Talk about the contest. We're gonna talk about the contest. It's on, baby, right? Yeah. Hey, what's up, babies? We are LMFAO. The contest. So what we gonna do is we want y'all to show your best shuffle. You know what I'm saying? All over the globe, send in your videos to win a spot in the LMFAO video.
That's right, baby.
Party Rock Anthem video. You know what I mean? You can shuffle anywhere, get it on camera, do it to the song. You know what I'm saying? The song comes out on iTunes on the 25th. Get the song, do your shuffle.
Do your shuffle.
You know what I'm saying?
Do your shuffle.
They were generally just talking about it, getting it out there, and then before they knew it, it took off. Party Rock Anthem blew everything wide open for LMFAO. I mean, like, you could not know anything about LMFAO and still probably know this song. Just because it was so popular, right? Like, it wasn't just the soundtrack for New Year's that year. It was pretty much the soundtrack of the year in 2011. I guess with Party Rock Anthem, LMFAO just managed to connect with the masses in a way that they hadn't quite been able to before. It reached an audience of people that loved to go out and party and have fun and have nights out, and it also really resonated with kids who just loved the sound of this goofy song. They had like a funny music video accompanying it, this shuffling dance craze, like it was right up everyone's alley. And so the success that they saw from this was unbelievable. Like suddenly LMFAO performing to tremendous crowds. They were selling astronomically priced Party Rock Anthem t-shirts like hotcakes. They were being recognized by any old Tom, Dick and Harry on the street. Every day of shuffling became just as much a reality for your casual radio listener as it became for LMFAO, who became obviously synonymous with shuffling. It was kind of their thing after that.
Go. I'm gonna have to join you. I'm gonna have to join you in the shuffle. And then you can even put in the kid and play to it. What you say? Bam. I can just lead the whole interview.
Imagine Party Rock Anthem, but released when Fortnite was a thing. I think I'd hate it. I think it would go too far at that point. But anyway, Party Rock Anthem was constantly played on the radio everywhere, all around the world. It peaked at #1 in so many countries, and it sold a ton of units as well. It sold over 10 million units, including 1 million digital copies in Australia, which it got recognized by Guinness World Records as being the biggest selling single in Australia in 2017. I think I calculated that at some point, like 1 in 24 Australians would have owned that song, which is insane. So the song was doing huge things for LMFAO, and the music video could stand on its own 2 feet as well. I have to assume that it intends to pay homage to the dancing plague of 1518, because that's kind of what it covered. But it was about this like dance apocalypse, basically. Think zombies, but shuffling instead. And it was just so enthralling. And of course the song was so catchy and so popular that the music video accrued 800 million views in less than a year. Now it's at something like 2.5 billion views. And to be fair, it is kind of brilliant, but that might just be the nostalgia talking. I don't know. Oh, my camera battery is dying. But, surprise, surprise, I have something up my sleeve. Yeah, you'll be so proud of me. I finally got a backup battery. And I got it just in time because this video is panning out to be long. I've already been talking for like an hour and a half, and I fear I have another hour and a half to go. You may be surprised to hear this, but I get so sick of the sound of my own voice. I'm like, I don't want to speak anymore. I'm done. But I must continue. Anyway, I was up to the point where I was going to say Redfoo said this about the song's success. So let me get into that after I fix my camera. Hold on. I think that's okay. You guys aren't looking at me anyway at this point. Redfoo said, our goal was we got to get to number 1. So when we were mixing the song, we spent about 2 weeks, and it was what's going to capture the world, what's going to be a little different, but I still feel slightly surprised. So they had this in mind. Like, they knew what they were, like I said, they were really good businessmen, really good with marketing. They knew what they were doing, but I don't think they could have predicted exactly what the song did. And it's not like they were overnight successes or anything like that. When they started LMFAO, they were 31 and 20 respectively, was my guess. By the time Party Rock Anthem made it big and they were finally like household names in everyone's mouths, Redfoo would have been turning 36 and Sky Blu would have been turning 25. And they'd finally made it. They'd finally achieved their dreams. You know, they said they wanted to make money, make music. More specifically, Redfoo said that they wanted to figure out a way to make money partying. And they were doing exactly that. This was great news. But of course, if they wanted to keep doing that, then they need to release a strong follow-up song to Party Rock Anthem. And for good measure, they released 3 more singles from their Sorry for Party Rocking album. Their second single was Champagne Showers, and honestly, it kind of performed like mediocrely compared to the previous success that they had with Party Rock Anthem. It didn't reach number 1 anywhere on the charts. The music video achieved less than 300 million views, which I know is not nothing, but I'm just comparing it to Party Rock Anthem. It's a big thing to live up to, so you wouldn't really expect it to do as good, right? But with that said, I mean, imagine having a YouTube video with less than 300 million views. That is so embarrassing. Interestingly, Natalia Kills featured on the Champagne Showers song, which I'd love to do a video on Natalia Kills. She was probably the only reason that anyone knows about X Factor New Zealand. And it's of course because it was so horrifically bad. But anyway, Champagne Showers did okay. I just don't think it resonated as well with the market that, like, they tapped into this huge broad market with Party Rock Anthem, and then it kind of narrowed down a little bit with Champagne Showers again. But the show must go on. It's not like they were doing badly, right? So they followed up the release of that single with, well, their Sorry for Party Rocking album. It had to come out at some point. And so it did. It became available to the public on the 17th of June, 2011. And it was met with mixed reviews, to say the least. It was very similar to their first album, where people were like, I don't know how I feel about this. And then they either went one way or the other way. I like it or I don't. Like, for example, one critic, they wrote that it includes exactly the right mix of energy and humor, plus a surprising amount of sincerity. While another said, it's not the persistent and aggressive misogyny that is the most soul-destroying thing about the record, nor is its song so imbecilic that if you ate a can of alphabet spaghetti, you could shit out more intelligent lyrics to a more pleasing tune. It's that LMFAO understood the pain they would be inflicting on the world and did it anyway. So that was scathing. Some critics were less brutal, but they did express exhaustion with LMFAO's shtick. In particular, Evan Sordi, for example, wrote, it's obvious that the LMFAO guys love partying. There are only so many ways you can deliver variations on that theme and still sound fresh and original. And meanwhile, others were pondering, they were like, is LMFAO even a serious band? Are they just satirical? Are they really in it for the music? Or are they just in it to be funny? Which kind of gave me deja vu for some reason. But what Redfoo had to say, he sort of countered the idea that LMFAO was a satirical band by saying, there is nothing deliberately humorous about our packages. The songs are meant to be serious, but humor in our music really stems from being class clowns. Not like being clowns, but coming up with the clever joke that everyone can relate to. That's what makes it funny, that it's true. But anyway, some would have said that LMFAO had missed the mark with their second album, despite their huge commercial success. Others would say that it complemented their discography perfectly, and it was exactly what the world needed at that time. It completely would depend on who you asked about their songs, but before LMFAO and their fans, the Party Rockers, had too much time to doubt themselves, they dropped another hit in September of 2011 that went insane on the charts. And you already know we're talking about Sexy and I Know It. So at this point they had 2 huge songs that even houses could dance to, which will only make sense if you're familiar with those viral videos. And people were just jumping on the LMFAO bandwagon left, right, and centre. And so to allow their new influx of fans to gather online, LMFAO opened a fan site. It went by partyrockpeople.com, and you could shop for merch there, and you could also upload photos, preferably, I'm sure, photos of you wearing their merch to encourage other people to buy their merch. And while LMFAO fans were busy mingling amongst themselves, LMFAO, Redfoo and Sky Blu, they were busy with everything that comes with your music dominating the charts. Because suddenly they were really, really hot in the industry. Like, they had people banging down their door for interviews, they were touring all over the place to these big crowds. They opened for Kesha on her Get Sleazy tour. The duo were even so hot that one of their concert venues caught on fire. Yeah, so that's a bit of a crazy bit of lore. Redfoo recalled, epic concert tonight. everybody on Honduras, we set the place on fire. Sorry for party rocking. Yeah, baby. And he also added, on a serious note, hope everyone is safe from the fire tonight. Love you, Honduras. So generally, where we are in our timeline now, LMFAO were becoming a reasonably respected electronic dance music duo, at least in the circles of people that could appreciate their high energy, comedy-infused sort of act. Which, luckily, did include, well, their dad and their granddad, respectively, Berry Gordy. He was pretty pleased with the LMFAO boys, which is impressive because, as we've spoke about earlier, he'd initially seen a lack of a future for his family in the music business, but thanks to LMFAO's success, his outlook had changed. So privately, with the LMFAO boys, he accepted that their passion laid in music, and he said, you know, you've got to follow your hearts. And publicly, he told the media, he said, they went from nothing to everything within a couple of years. Even with the whole Motown legacy thing, I've had a chance to appreciate this and enjoy it. And he continued, I'm delighted. I am so proud of the way they are as people. They remember their teachings from Smokey and Stevie and all the other artists, and they have gratitude. Their goal is to make people happy. At a time like now, people need what they give, love, happiness, a party, and they're doing it better than anybody I've seen in a long time. They're making the world a better place. And so what I would probably say is the peak of their career, although they, I'm sure, would have a different answer. LMFAO even got to perform in February of 2012 at the Super Bowl. They weren't like the main act, but they starred alongside Madonna as a guest act. And the other guests she had were Nicki Minaj, MIA, and CeeLo Green. So some pretty big names up on that stage that night, especially for 2012. And to say that Madonna's show itself was a spectacle would be putting it lightly. I think. Like, there was a lot going on. It was a really big production. So when the camera panned over and we just saw LMFAO standing in a corner with a fake, like, DJ turntable, it was a bit jarring, a little bit funny, but listen, they played it off, and I bet it was quite the surreal moment for them to both not only be performing at the Super Bowl, but also be doing it with Madonna. Like, never in your wildest dreams, right? Would you cook that up? And Madonna even wrote on Redfoo's shoulders, which he spoke about later. He said, I don't know how many people were in the stadium, but they didn't exist. All that existed was me and Madonna. In rehearsal, she said, if you were working out more, you could lift me a little easier. He said her biceps were way more cut up than mine. She was like, get a jump rope. But then LMFAO, they leveled the playing field. They showed off their undeniable fitness by shuffling with Madonna. It really was a sign of the times, wasn't it, this whole performance? Which makes it so fun to look back on. But I must admit, while they were shuffling, my mind wandered a little. Because I found myself thinking, I was like, man, these costumes look legit on stage, but like, imagine walking around those things behind the scenes. I could never take myself seriously again. I couldn't look people in the eye. It just takes a special kind of person to do something like that and to truly love it. And the LMFAO guys were that certain type of special person that owned that part of themselves, that enjoyed performing to a crowd in silly little outfits. They were doing it with glee and the public ate it up, and it's really quite cool. And so this, in my mind, was like the icing on the cake, where I was like, yep, they'd achieved everything they were dreaming of. Their name was up in lights. They were making lots of money. They were recognizable by everyone on the street, basically. They'd made it, you know, this is what they wanted. So things were looking really, really good for the Gordy duo. They were spending their days getting drunk on stage, partying with their audience, and they were getting paid for it. Lots of money. They were touring around the world, just living the rock star life, basically. Until around September of 2012, it all came to a screeching halt. Because there were some things unfolding in the background that weren't exactly so party rock. Because it would be fair to assume that LMFAO was kind of riding their high all the way into 2012, but that's not what was going on at all. Actually, basically, as soon as things started to really look up for the LMFAO boys, it fell apart. Basically, where the uncle and nephew duo had initially seemed like best friends with perfectly aligned goals in life and music, a rift had seemed to form between them. This happened sometime in late 2011, publicly, and it all kind of started with Sky Blu's back problems. So now, Sky was only in his mid-20s at this point, so you wouldn't really expect this, but his back was giving him a lot of grief. He spoke in interviews about how he used to be this really athletic kid, and he kind of stopped moving his body so much, and he started to favor booze and partying and performing, and so his body just kind of gave up on him. It wasn't used to what he was doing, and it didn't adapt. It didn't help that he'd already sustained back injuries playing football when he was younger, and they came back to haunt him quite badly. So his back problems, right, Sky Blu's back problems started to affect his work. Cherry Tree Records, which was like a part of Interscope, they released an official statement on the 20th of December in 2011, and it was titled LMFAO reschedule 3 remaining Canadian tour dates due to injury. And the article itself read, LMFAO regretfully announces that the remaining 3 dates of the Cherry Tree Pop Alternative Canadian Tour have been rescheduled due to a severe back injury sustained by one half of the group, Sky Blu. They said Sky attempted to perform the remaining shows from a mobility chair, but only completed one before a physician declared him unfit to perform and explained the severity of the injury. They clarified Sky's doctor has diagnosed diagnosed him with 3 herniated discs and prescribed him a full month of rehabilitation with no travel or performances, which is just terrible. Like, it makes me wince to think about the pain he must have been in. But then the article also included a quote from Sky to his fans, and it said, "First off, I would like to apologize to our fans. I am disappointed that I'm unable to come and see everyone and perform. Unfortunately, I need to take this time off to get healthy and get my wiggle back." Wiggle, 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 wiggle. Yeah, you got this, Sky Blu. And then in an appearance on Good Morning America, Redfoo addressed the issue a little bit further. He said he hurt his back wiggling. Sky Blu did. And Redfoo said, "Doctors said he had an abnormal package and it throws off his balance. When you wiggle, you got to balance out and the muscles in his back." And then one of the hosts finished his sentence and she said, "They just gave way." So that was what Redfoo was telling the public about that. Basically, they rescheduled these 3 Canadian shows to be played on the 6th, the 7th, and the 9th of February 2012 instead, which would have been literally directly after the Super Bowl. So obviously they were hoping that the Super Bowl would get Sky Blu back into the swing of things and then they'd be off to the races again. But unfortunately, even after Sky took the time to rest up and heal, his back just didn't come right. And in fact, by the time that the Super Bowl rolled around, Sky was in such severe pain that he could barely walk. He was practically immobile, like he could not function. And so he later explained, he said, "They called me to do the Super Bowl and I said, I'll do it, but I have to lay on my back the whole time unless we're practicing. And I never did one full rehearsal." He said, "The only one that I did full out was at the Super Bowl and I slipped my disc out during it. So right when they lowered us through the stage and my part was over, they had to carry me into the darkness and work on my back. I didn't get to see the rest of the show." So that's awful, right? The moment this poor guy got back to work, his back gave out again. He couldn't catch a break, and of course that meant that he wouldn't be able to make it to LMFAO's rescheduled gigs in Canada, right? Because he couldn't even get through like a minute of a performance. So Cherry Tree Records, they released another statement on the 1st of February, and it read, "Currently, Sky Blu's back simply cannot take the stress of a multi-song performance as the pain becomes crippling." Despite attending specialized therapy sessions over the past month, Sky's physician concluded that the herniated discs was still too damaged to allow him to perform, and any physical activity for more than 2 minutes at a time could lead to major setbacks and negate any progress in his recovery. Which is a really dire diagnosis, right? Like, that sucks. He had to put his whole life on hold. But fans weren't happy because they saw him perform at the Super Bowl and they were like, "Oh, so are you going to explain this? Like, why could you perform at the Super Bowl but not come to do our performances?" Which, looking back now, seems a little bit selfish, out of turn, but I guess at the time they've been waiting for this highly anticipated thing and it's not going to happen. Must have been pretty frustrating. But, you know, knowing that they'd already sort of shuffled the performance dates around, being familiar with the saying, "the show must go on," it was decided that LMFAO would be performing in Canada, but they'd be doing it 1 member down. Sky Blu could not be there, and so Canadians were just going to get a Redfoo show, pretty much. And then hours before their first show in Canada that was scheduled for the 6th, Redfoo tweeted and he said, "My heart goes out to you, Sky, for performing despite your back injury. While you rest and recover, I will party rock for the both of us," with a little love heart. What a lovely gesture, right? Thank you so much, Redfoo. But unfortunately, lying underneath that message of support and love was a snake. The underlying message in that tweet was Redfoo saying, "I will do this with or without you." And that's exactly what he did. So he continued to perform and make media appearances without Sky by his side. Redfoo and LMFAO's Party Rock crew was kind of what they were touring as. So they went to Canada, Europe, Asia, all while Sky Blu was practically bedridden. He said he was unable to really move for like 3 months. Which on the surface, I must say, doesn't really seem like a bad thing, because obviously, say you work in an office block, your office should not shut down because you have a tummy bug. It should continue to run, right? So that when you have recovered from your tummy bug, you have a workplace to return to. But with that said, you wouldn't expect to be iced out just because you were sick for a little bit, right? Like, you would expect to be kept in the loop about what's happening at work, projects that are coming up. You should be paid sick leave until you're able to return, all things going well. Well, rumors started swirling around April of 2012 that those things weren't necessarily happening. Not when it came to Redfoo and Sky Blu. There was a New York Post article, which we literally just spoke, was it in our last video? Yeah, about how not necessarily trustworthy gossip journalists are, but it's just what got the ball rolling, so I have to talk about it. Is basically this article unearthed the idea that supposedly LMFAO's partnership was falling apart behind closed doors. I couldn't actually find their original article. I think it may have been wiped from the internet, but I did find a summary of it. And it said that they wrote something about the Grammy-nominated rappers fighting over the cash that they've made from their catchy tunes, including the #1 hits. And they said that they're on the verge of going their separate ways. And of course, that prompted a slew of articles to be released about LMFAO's supposed breakup, their fallout. Like, there was one on Glamour, it was entitled, "In which we solved this silly LMFAO feud, no problem." And the author of that article jokingly suggested that, you know, oh, you guys are nephew and uncle, you should exchange some cute little cards. Maybe you just need to adopt a third member into the group. Maybe you should change your lyrics to be more supportive of each other. So they said, instead of "I'm a Miami bitch," how about "we're a Miami bitch"? But the reality was that LMFAO really did have issues happening behind the scenes, and they ran a little deeper than that. Like, they weren't going to be resolved with a little uncle-nephew hug. But nobody knew that. It wasn't confirmed at that point. LMFAO, well, Redfoo and Sky Blu, they actually completely denied that there were any issues at all happening behind the scenes. So on the 24th of April, they posted a video on the Redfoo YouTube channel. It was entitled "LMFAO Make Fun of Breakup Rumors." And in that video, they announced that actually, things were fine. They said that Sky Blu had recovered, they were both doing well, and they were planning on going on a tour around North America together that year. It was going to start May 22nd and end July 4th.
You see the stuff that they wrote in the New York Post?
What you talking
about? The crazy stuff, all the stuff. And
Oh, DKNY?
Yeah, baby,
hot.
she hot. But no, it says, let me read it to you.
What do you mean?
Let me
see
say-
it. No, let me
no,
see
it
it.
says-
Boom, let me
I
see
know,
it, man.
Give me that! No, it says every day we tussling.
What you mean?
Every day we tussling. Every day we tussling. Every day we tussling.
We're going on tour, man.
Yeah,
and
baby.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, the Sorry for Party Rocker tour this summer, baby. Yeah, I'm saying, come tussle with us.
Yeah, come tussle with your boy.
Yeah,
you know what
baby.
I'm saying? LiveNation.com, get your tickets, baby.
Yeah.
And they spoke about the predicament of everyone thinking that they were going through this massive fallout in a couple interviews as well. For example, there was this Billboard article that read, "That's the first time we've ever encountered that type of stuff, and it's completely false," Sky Blu said. "We're family at the end of the day, so that is stronger than anything. We had to make a video to let people know that the Party Kings are tighter than ever, baby." And Redfoo, meanwhile, he accepted that it comes with the territory being successful, being famous, being number one, basically to have all of these rumors come out about you. And the article goes on to quote Sky as saying that we're all ready and in shape for this tour. Then it goes, while LMFAO did fine in Sky Blu's absence, he is excited, Redfoo is, to have the act at full strength again. And it quotes Redfoo as saying, "Just looking to my right, looking to my left, and seeing my player partner right there, it's such a great feeling, personally, because we're like twins on stage. We know what each other's going to say or do, and we follow each other's lead back and forth all the time. We have an incredible rapport on stage, and fans love to see us together and all that stuff, so it's going to be incredible." But not only were these guys planning to go back on tour, get the ball rolling again, Sky also said that we've got some stuff up our sleeves now. He said, "We can't give it all away, but a movie is something that we've definitely been thinking about and putting out into the universe for a minute." Meanwhile, Redfoo kind of hyped it up. He said, "It might be too much for the world. You might have to do some sit-ups and stuff because you might be laughing and you might have to stretch your stomach muscles." So I guess they had this idea for an LMFAO movie. Redfoo said, "You know how the etiquette in movie theaters is be quiet? Well, we might say, everybody right now, tweet something during the movie that might break the lines of the movie, break the seventh wall, or take a picture of what's on the screen right now and tweet it out. What if we did that in the movie?" So we've got to really think about it before we do that stuff, but that's what we're doing. We're thinking about that stuff. We've always got our pads jotting down ideas. I'd say that they probably could almost be glad that an LMFAO movie of that caliber never came into fruition, because I don't know, I just feel like it would have become dated almost immediately if they did it that way. But it is an interesting concept, I suppose, and it does align with their brand being all like fun and games, not following the rules, not taking life seriously. But even though they were sharing all of these big ideas for the duo publicly, things only got messier and messier behind the scenes for Redfoo and Sky Blu. So around the same time as they were coming back in April of 2012, their former managers actually filed a breach of contract lawsuit against them. And in that lawsuit, they complained that they had been unjustly fired after putting in the work to expedite LMFAO's success. The court documents were interesting. They read, "LMFAO has thanked the managers who took them from 0 to 60 by throwing them under the tour bus, i.e., firing them." But as we know, this kind of confused me because LMFAO was signed to Interscope basically from the very start, and they had been with Interscope throughout their successes. But now this group, RPMGRP, was claiming that it hatched a written agreement to manage the group back in March 2008 for a period of 2 years for a commission of 20%. of all gross monies or other considerations, which means that before LMFAO even got successful, the contract would have been over. Like, it would have ended just in time for Party Rock Anthem to come out and go crazy. But regardless, they go on to say that Redfoo and Sky Blu poached 2 employees of the original managers, hiring them on a salary instead of paying a commission to the original managers. And they said that this case arises from LMFAO's failure to fully account and pay commissions to its now former managers pursuant to both written and oral agreements. And basically, now that LMFAO was super duper popular, RPMGRP decided to seek $7 million in damages. They said that that was what they missed out on by the LMFAO guys, like, sidestepping their agreements. And the LMFAO guys kind of quietly responded to this publicly, and they said basically, like, we're related to people who understand the music industry deeply. We've been warned about stuff like this happening. Like, Sky Blu, he told an interviewer that his dad had mentioned to him that when you get famous, you become the target of rumors, and there are people with lawsuits going out to take advantage of fame and tabloids starting controversy. So my understanding is that they definitely felt like they weren't out of their depth with this. They could almost have kind of seen something like that coming, but just with the nature of lawsuits, they can go on for years and years, right? And this one did, so we'll return to that later. But again, even though publicly Redfoo and Sky Blu were working together again, acting all buddy-buddy, Page 6, the New York Post Page 6, was not convinced. So they continued to perpetuate this rumor that things were actually going up in smoke behind the scenes. And so their response, Page 6's response to LMFAO's video dispelling the rumors and the interviews that they did and stuff like that, it reads, Redfoo has always been promoting himself, doing his own thing, a source tells us, explaining that Redfoo had been booking far more $100,000 a night DJ gigs than his nephew, while using the duo's name. It said, while Redfoo has set up a residency at Vegas Club Marquee and recently spun the opening of Marquee the Star in Sydney, Australia, Sky Blu recently confessed that he had not performed in 3 months. But that's not really any new information, right? I mean, we didn't know that Redfoo had set up a Vegas residency or anything like that. I didn't say that, but we knew that he'd been performing without Sky Blu using the name, and they'd still come back together. Except they kind of hadn't. They had, but they hadn't. Like, while they were working together, they were also looking a lot more separated than they had been in previous years. Like, they weren't spending every day and night together like they had done in the past. They were sort of off doing their own individual ventures. They just happened to be working together at the same time, and they were obviously trying to keep the ship sailing, but it just wasn't working as well as it used to. Their interests were diverting. You know, Redfoo was exploring other things. He was working with sports teams, coaching a professional tennis player. The word was that he dated another professional tennis player for a while, but he subbed in for her in 2013, and he played against Serena Williams. So he was kind of getting back involved in that tennis space. And meanwhile, Sky was establishing his own monthly DJ residency in Las Vegas. It was entitled Who Came to Party? And that occurred at the Wet Republic MGM Grand venue, and he seemed to be doing far better in terms of health at this point, thank goodness. An article recalled that Sky Blu was full of energy throughout the performance. He was seen dancing, jumping around, he even climbed the stage to get closer to the crowd. So that's great, right? It's awesome to hear that these guys were both in good health. They were both working, they were both playing LMFAO hits like Sorry for Party Rocking, Sexy and I Know It, Party Rock Anthem. It's just that they were doing it all alone, and that's what was weird. Like, it was becoming more and more uncommon for Redfoo and Sky Blu to be seen together. But as far as their partnership went, nothing had been officially announced. Like, it just looked like maybe they were doing different things, but they still intended to come together at some point until September of 2012. September of 2012 is when they finally pulled the plug and they announced that, yeah, they were going to be taking a hiatus. They said they were going to focus on personal projects. Basically, my favorite headline about this was, by far, Party Rock will not be in the house tonight. LMFAO breakup. Like, that's a really funny way to announce it, but they didn't actually break up. Not really. Like, that's not what they said they were doing. The news was kind of being misconstrued. A lot of news sources were saying, like, LMFAO are splitting, they'll never be together again. They literally just said, we're taking a break. So actually what they did was they let the Party Rockers down gently. They said, listen, we're going to be pursuing other interests for the time being, but that doesn't mean we'll never make another anthem together again. Okay, just hang in there, Party Rockers. But they definitely infused a couple hints into their statements that led, like, you wouldn't be wrong for reading between the lines and hearing, we're not doing too well as a partnership. Like, Redfoo, he's quoted as saying in September of 2012, I feel like we've been doing this for so long, 5 or 6 years, and we're kind of saying, like, well, let's just do what's natural and just kind of explore that instead of forcing it all the time. I think that we naturally just started hanging out with 2 different sets of people, 2 different crowds, but we're always family. He'll always be my nephew and I'll always be his uncle. And then he went on to talk about how he loved to bring party music to the world, and he said basically whatever he released individually would probably be pretty LMFAO-ish, like that was really his thing. And Sky said the opposite. He said, like, it's not my thing, I'm going to be doing different stuff. But he did kind of follow the same sentiment as Redfoo when he spoke out about their hiatus. He said, well, you know, first of all, we're not breaking up. I know that for sure. We're family and stuff, so it's always love. It's interesting because someone will say one thing and it's just like high school, then all of a sudden it's they're breaking up, they're fighting, it just kind of gets blown out of proportion, but we're definitely not breaking up. He said, I love Foo with all my heart. That's my man. Me and him, we did this whole thing together. I have him to thank for a lot of stuff that's going right in my life. Me and him are always good. That's my uncle. I love him. But as for what actually brought around their separation for the time being, Sky said, me and Foo, we have a really tight family bond. He's older than me. He is my uncle. I love him to death. He's my man. I want to hang out with him 24/7, but Foo and I are different ages. I'm listening to Drake and he's listening to older stuff. So sometimes I just want to hang out with people closer to my age, but I love him to death. He's my homeboy. And so just like Redfoo did, Sky basically said our creative paths are heading in different directions and we want to follow them. But he also added, unlike Redfoo was like, this is what I'll be doing individually. Sky was like, once we get that out of our system, we'll be able to dial in on the next LMFAO project. So that seemed like something Sky was keeping open. He said, let us get our wind up, let us show the world who we are as individuals, and then we come together stronger than ever. And an article on Spin sort of like reiterated and added that the duo are not kaput. Their publicist confirms to Spin that they have not broken up, but are merely doing exactly what Redfoo said, working on separate projects at the moment. Which, note to the press, is what artists do when they are in between projects. So stay calm, Jersey Shore Nation. There is still plenty of party rocking left to do. But the reality is that as reassuring as those statements might have been, Redfoo and Sky Blu never reunited as a musical duo, did they? They simply released Party Rock, apologized for it, they said sorry for party rocking, and then they slunk away into the night, never to be seen again, right? And at this point, I can say fairly confidently that their 15-year hiatus is unlikely to be broken anytime soon, and I will tell you why I can say that so confidently, but I do have to line up a few things for you to fully understand. I need to give you the full picture. But one thing that happened was that over the years, sort of as time went on, the LMFAO guys, they both got a little more confident in creating distance from each other publicly. So where at first they were saying, you know, we're still super tight and we love each other so much, but we're gonna come back, we just need a break. By April of 2013, so 6-7 months later, oh no, 6-7. Apologies, I won't do it again. But Redfoo then was quoted as saying, I could easily say, okay, sure, in the future we'll come back together, but really the most accurate way I can say is that time will tell. He said, it's not just about the music. It's easy to get in the studios and say, hey, you put a verse over here and we can just put a label on it and call it LMFAO. That's easy. That's what we did on the last album. You can hire producers and they tell you to insert a rap here and you put a sticker on it. That's easy to do. There's a dynamic between me and Sky Blu that has changed. There's a personal dynamic and energy dynamic. And he said, I can't really speak for him, but I am very protective of that. And he continued, we didn't have to come together to do LMFAO, but we wanted to. It was like, we hang out every day. We're best friends every day. Instead of you trying to help me do my solo thing and I try to help you do your solo thing, why don't we both do a thing together? But now that isn't the case. We're not hanging out, so it doesn't make sense. The dynamic has changed. He said, now we'd have to fly to see each other. We used to live in the same house. The circumstances have changed. The popularity is different. The money situations are different. And he concluded, if the dynamic can change, we can come back together. That's why we call this thing a break, a hiatus, because we have the right to come back in the future. If it's fun, I'll do it. And he also said to the Rolling Stone, Redfoo said, if you're on a date and one person wants Mexican and the other person wants seafood or sushi, it could be an issue. You can compromise, you can go to a Mexican place and get the fish fajitas, but we just wanted to do some different things. Now we're both doing our own things and we're both happy. And now in 2014, something pretty big happened for the LMFAO guys, and that's that Rick Ross filed a lawsuit against them. He claimed that they ripped off his song, Hustlin', which was released in 2006. And a Rolling Stone article explains the lawsuit and what the court document said. It says, the use of Hustlin' in Party Rock Anthem is readily apparent, despite the change from Everyday I'm Hustlin' to Everyday I'm Shufflin', and constitutes the creation of an unauthorized derivative work. That's what the lawsuit read, they said. And to boot, it says, the suit, which was filed in a Florida federal court, states that LMFAO's performance of the lyric is similar to Ross's, making it an obvious attempt to capitalize on the fame and success of Hustlin'. Now at this point, of course, LMFAO hadn't been a thing for a year and a bit, and they'd only been in the spotlight for such a succinct period of time that this was fairly quiet news, like they kind of fallen off people's radars. But it definitely had an impact on Redfoo and Sky Blu in particular, and their relationship. In Sky Blu, he didn't say anything about this until 2 years later, so this was 2016. But when he did come out and speak about it, what he said was very severe. He made some big accusations. So at this point, he was just going by Sky professionally, and he stylized it with an 8 in the place of the S. But anyway, that explains why he started this message by saying thoughts from the Sky. And this statement, it's accompanied by a photo of Sky in which he's standing in front of a billboard that's advertising his uncle Redfoo's Party Rock Mansion album, which we'll talk about later, the places their careers went back. What Sky Blu said was, I've been wanting to speak my truth about this whole LMFAO situation for a long time. Out of respect to our family, I kept it all to myself. I woke up this morning excited to plan the release of my album that has been 2 years in the making, but then I get a call from my lawyer telling me, you say you own all of my LMFAO royalties? Different things like this would go on all the time when you know we are 50-50 across the board. The way you belittle people and your crazy power trips was some of the main reasons our relationship as family and partnership has greatly suffered. And he was really, really honest and really, really raw in this statement. He said, I'm sure you know I have been trying to get this money released that was held up from the Rick Ross lawsuit. Unlike you, I didn't take the LMFAO brand for myself. Your whole vibe and style since our last show together is a completely half-assed version of LMFAO. My back went out right before a big arena show. You went out and performed, but then just left on the tour bus without seeing me. In fact, you didn't speak to me after that for about a year, which is around the time you announced our hiatus. Lots coming out here, right? So he said, as someone who really cared, loved, and had your back, this really hurt. I mean, you're my uncle, my blood. You even kept touring as LMFAO and made a lot of money doing it. You never once called me to ask how I was recovering. You just kept shuffling every day without me. I really loved you. I looked up to you, man. But the more successful we got, the more you wanted control. While I was hurt, you and some people at Interscope tried and kind of succeeded to put on a huge stadium tour and cut me out of it as much as you possibly could, while still using the LMFAO brand. Because remember, they did like a North American tour together. Meanwhile, Redfoo was taking the LMFAO act overseas without Sky Blu to Asia, Europe. So Sky said, this is crazy. Something we built together. After a while, you took for yourself. I mean, your last album is called Party Rock Mansion. The only 2 LMFAO albums were called Party Rock and Sorry for Party Rocking. Even if we wanted to come back, you severely damaged the brand, especially with your last album. You tried to sell happiness, but you're not a happy person. He said, no matter how hard you try, LMFAO will never be the same without me, so therefore it will never be the same. Because I guess he's not coming back, right, is what he's saying. He said, I couldn't stand how you disrespect people. I was gonna let it go, but you're still fucking with me and my livelihood. Even though you already took so much from me, it's still not enough. Well, the shit stops here, Stefan. I just wanted to make music from a real place, not from the 13 to 25 female demographic or whatever other statistics you and the label obsess over. He said, music for me is from the heart, from the start. I will help people with my musical messages and vision, not control them. A big portion of our music industry is up. They need to stop treating artists like cows and chickens and using them for all they can produce and then just discarding them without a care. It's time to treat artists like racehorses. They should be groomed to be strong and champions. He said, it's time to put creativity first and the business after. A lot of you got it fucked up. It's time for a change. That just means Big Bad is right on time, which is like a collective of Sky and his friends, which we'll talk about very soon. But he said, I am thankful for LMFAO and I love our music, but most importantly, the people we touched with it. It's the behind the scenes realities that caused me to embrace myself more. This, in part, led me to become the man I am today. The whole world looks at me as a member of LMFAO, but very soon, the world will meet Sky. So from the sounds of things, and of course we can't confirm anything that Sky said, but it did to me read as a very passionate and very honest statement. I feel like he really was speaking from the heart and speaking about his experience and his perspective. And it sounds like he felt really, really scorned. He made it sound like Interscope did him dirty and he felt like his uncle allowed that and maybe even leaned into it and, you know, ran with it, which must be really upsetting. And to be fair, Sky entered into a business partnership with his 31-year-old uncle at the age of 20. So even though, of course, he loved and trusted his uncle and he was surprised by the way that things turned out, it's not entirely shocking that there might have been a power imbalance between uncle and nephew with an 11-year age difference, one of them just entering adulthood. And of course I say might have, because like I said, this is all he said, he said, basically. But there were quite a few sources that did kind of hint towards them having a power imbalance. And one of them, funnily enough, was Rick Ross's lawyer. So back in 2015, this was in regards to a mediation surrounding the lawsuit that Rick Ross brought to LMFAO. This is what Rick Ross's lawyer said. With respect to Skylar Gordy's non-attendance, plaintiffs are concerned about Stephen Gordy's acting entirely in his stead, in the light of Skylar Gordy's deposition testimony that he was never apprised of pre-suit settlement offers by plaintiffs, and that one of the main reasons for the breakup of the musical duo was the fact that Skylar Gordy had not been kept apprised of pertinent matters. Moreover, the representation that Stephen Gordy intends to single-handedly wrest control over the mediation process in advance of the mediation is disturbing. So I mean, all we can do is speculate, right? We can choose what we believe and who we align with more. But my viewpoint is that, for one, it does make sense what Sky is saying, because even if you go back to the start of their partnership, you might remember that Redfoo was pretty well motivated by making money and becoming famous, and those were the things sort of driving him. He was like, I'm 30 and I just want to get these things done. And he's been very open about that fact that, yeah, he did love music. He was making hip-hop music out of pure passion, but then with LMFAO, that was an entirely new venture. Like, that was his effort to achieve his dreams of being rich and famous. He was kind of over all the artsy stuff at that point. He'd been there, done that. He just wanted to make it big. And meanwhile, Sky, he was still very young. He was at the beginning of his journey. He was very much motivated by the drive to make music and live a fun, comfortable life. It just wasn't that often that you heard Sky talking about the girls or the fame or the millions compared to Redfoo. He was more speaking about what he wanted to do with his music, what he wanted to accomplish, what he wanted to reach people with. And with that said, I could definitely understand where the cracks in their arrangement might have started to form. And then on top of that, there's not a lot of like really verifiable evidence, but there's a chunk of evidence that does point to there being a power imbalance and some misaligned goals in place. And the fact is that, family or not, some people just don't really gel that well together, right? Even if you really enjoy spending time with someone, I mean, everyone's different. Everyone's going to go down a different path. And the thing is that when you're so closely intertwined in like a business partnership, and on top of that, your family, I mean, that gets a bit messier, right? Because not only do you have your finances and your careers tied up together, you also always have these ties to each other because you're family. And especially with things being out in the public eye in the way that they were for Redfoo and Sky Blu, it must have been rough. So I can understand that if what Sky said is true, why it would take him so long to process what was happening and to decide whether he wanted to air out that like gaudy, dirty laundry to the world or even to other family members. It's just easier to be quiet about it. Like, it's such a difficult thing to approach. And his statement does kind of read like he just boiled over and he was like, I can't take this anymore. But it sucks, especially because they did really seem to start off on a good foot as a duo. Like, Sky even said in 2017, he said, I love LMFAO and I am thankful for it, but people don't know what went on behind the scenes. He said specifically, I loved the first album. It came from the soul. The second one was great, but there was so much politics behind it that it was bittersweet. So it sounds like really the more fame and fortune became introduced to them, the more their names went up in lights, the more difficult it got to navigate that business partnership and the familial relationship. But as far as the other side of the story goes, I did try to find something from Redfoo responding to his nephew's claims, and I just couldn't really get anything. I don't know if maybe I missed it, because there was this article and it documented that Redfoo responded to something Sky said on Twitter by saying, love y'all. And I mean, he did, it's right there in black and white, but the problem is that Sky's tweet has been deleted and I couldn't find it archived anywhere, so I don't know what Redfoo actually responded to when he said that. And also, it's not much of a response. It doesn't give us much insight. Like, yes, they're family, of course they love it, like there's love there. So I looked and I explored the avenue of Mahogany Locks' YouTube channel, which I know it kind of sounds funny, but it just so happens that in April of 2017 she did a video with her brother Sky, and that was pretty cute. But then like 2 weeks later, in May of 2017, she did a video with her uncle Redfoo. I was like, well, maybe they spoke about it, and they kind of did, and this is what Redfoo had to say about the state of their relationship at that point.
Me and Sky had lunch.
I heard about that one.
At Toy, at our favorite restaurant, and woo, man, we got some stuff coming. You know, maybe one day we'll come back You know LMFAO.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I'll be there cheering.
Well, no, you could be there. You could be the third member.
Oh, please.
But nothing's really come of that. And that was genuinely all I could piece together about Sky's side of the story and Redfoo's side of the story. Or it was the only significant things that I could find anyway. Because they've spoken about it a lot, but most of what they've said are either the same, like generic statements about, oh, we're going on a hiatus, we're family, obviously we love each other. Other than that, like Sky obviously had at some point been really honest about how he'd been feeling and what he'd been doing, and he had some interviews in which he spoke about it more. But on Redfoo's end, we haven't heard so much from like a personal level especially. And to be fair, this is their personal business that we're touching on, so it's going to be open to interpretation because it's their lived experiences between them. So that's all I can really say on that, but it does seem like the downfall of LMFAO might have been something to do with a familial fallout, with maybe greed, or just generally misaligned goals. But as for the where are they now kind of section, I was going to try and make this quick, but I kind of didn't, which is terrifying because I've been talking for 2 hours and 45 minutes. So let's just get into it. Basically, the lawsuit, you might remember LMFAO's former managers, they filed a lawsuit against them, and that wrapped up in 2017. What happened was that LMFAO won, basically because it was all a bit of bullshit. And I'd say that even reading the initial claims, it was pretty obvious that GRP was grasping at straws, just trying to capitalize on LMFAO's success. So in the end, the musical duo did come out on top. But the same could not be said for the Rick Ross lawsuit. It kind of started good for LMFAO, but So anyway, this finally concluded in 2019. And what happened was initially the lawsuit that Rick Ross filed got thrown out because the phrase "every day I'm hustling" was not covered by copyright and he couldn't really prove that they'd stolen it anyway. But an article on EDM.com explained that the co-writers and producers of the song, like Jermaine Jackson, Andrew Hart, they had the opportunity to press copyright claims specifically. Rick Ross couldn't, but they could. And so Rick Ross did decide to go ahead and have them reopen the lawsuit in 2018, but it didn't really get anywhere. It ended up reaching a settlement before the case went to trial. And of course that's private. We don't know how they settled it. Now, as far as their individual experiences through life as, you know, not being part of the LMFAO group, to say that Redfoo and Sky Blu have gone in completely different directions in their respective careers would be an understatement, I think. I'll start with Sky because we know less about Sky, but he's quoted as saying in 2014 that music is something that he really views as art. He said, "I could care less about money, truly. I meditate a lot and it's more important for me to feel happiness and joy than it is for the money." I'm not saying that it would be a byproduct of what I do. I mean, it's nice, but what I do is for the love. My music is my art. So now people are going to see that side of me, but I still party like a motherfucker, so it's all good. So that was his perspective on music, was it really was a passion project for him rather than something he wanted to capitalize on in any way he could. And this is where Big Bad University comes in. So basically what Sky did was he formed this collective with his other musical friends that was called Big Bad University, and he said, "We're a group of friends who really want to be great, and every day we work with each other and inspire each other to get better." The thing about Big Bad University is that we're a family and we're always pushing one another to get better. We always push for love and unity. We all live together in one huge house and it's a lot of fun. And he's quoted as saying, "I created my own university. Basically, I grew up with people always telling me what I can and can't do, and I always kind of classified myself as a dreamer. I created a university for dreamers. We have a lot of musical artists in there and DJs and everybody. We're about to release a big song. I kind of want to show the world what's up with Sky." And Sky also spoke about how he wanted to make a good sort of positive impact on the world with his music. So he said that all of the proceeds from their song #SexSong, he said it would be going towards research for HIV and AIDS. Basically, he spoke about it and he said, "We wanted to give something a little back. We like working with charities. We just want to give back to the world." And so it seems like he kind of replaced the partnership that he had with his uncle that wasn't working out for him with one that completely aligned with his values and his goals as an artist and as a person, which is great. And even though it didn't really go far, I'm happy that he had the opportunity to do that. Now, as a solo artist, separate from his Big Bad University project, Sky actually chose to release music for free because what he said was there's so much business that comes to play in the music industry, and honestly, it just got old to me. So I said, you know what? I love music and my music is free. This album is free. He said that's what I wanted to give to the fans. I wanted them to listen to my music. The label won't listen, but these fans will, and it's 100% free. And if you see me, I'll give you a free hard copy quality of my album. He continued, I just want people in the world to know that Sky Blu is coming and I'm going to make a big impact. That's really my goal. I want to be the best me I can be, so you will see a lot of me. In 2017, he reminisced, I had all these things against me, and so I'm all about art and creativity, but now I'm about business. After parting ways with Foo, I did 2 albums for free, one called Rebel Music and the other called We Evolve Every Day. I was constantly, finding myself as an artist and creator and how I could express myself. And in the end, he said, I want to be known for raising the consciousness of the planet through music as art. I feel people can listen to the album and learn to ask the right questions after hearing different things. I want to see the world smile. There's too much negativity in this world. But the album that Sky was promoting in that interview that I just quoted him from ended up being his last release to date. Which is weird because he was talking about having 9 albums in the works and he had so much music he wanted to drop and he was loving creating, but we haven't heard anything from him since 2017 musically. He just disappeared. Correction, actually, in 2023, Sky featured on Mahogany Lox's song, his little sister's song Gaslight. And he featured on another person's song as well in 2022. So there are a couple things that have been happening, but I stand by my statement that Sky has been quite quiet in recent years. I don't know what happened. Apparently Sky was in the talks with Interscope about signing to their record label again, but then he determined that it wasn't the right fit for him because, the way they pushed him in LMFAO to be so commercially successful and he was so unfulfilled and surrounded by people that didn't really seem genuine and he didn't like it. And so maybe he tried to go independent, but he didn't have enough money. Maybe it got sapped up by that Rick Ross lawsuit and he was just left in high waters with no floaties. He just couldn't afford to do it anymore. I don't know, because he said you'd expect, he's a Geordie, you'd expect his family to have money, but he did say that his grandfather, he'd give you time, he'd give you wisdom, but he wouldn't help financially, so maybe he did just run out of money. Maybe he chose a quiet life. I'm not sure, because it sounds like he did really want to get some impactful messages across with his music and he wanted to do good things for communities, but I guess something fell apart along the way or something changed along the way. I don't know. Whatever happened, I do hope that Sky is out there doing his own thing, living his best life. I hope that he's found peace and happiness, but whatever he is doing, he's been really quiet about it, and honestly, good for him. If that's what he wanted, then power to him. Redfoo, on the other hand, he's been everywhere doing everything. Mainly, as Sky sort of, not even alluded to, as Sky said, Redfoo did attempt time and time again to capitalize on the party rock brand, which to be fair did seem to be his artistic calling more than Sky's, so maybe he was like, I cultivated this for me and I'm gonna take it, but it just didn't work as well for him as a solo artist. I'll give you the rundown, but basically in 2012, Redfoo released his debut single. It was called Bring Out the Bottles. It opened with some very familiar catchphrases. He was definitely true. He was like, I'm Redfoo, listen, please guys, I'm Redfoo. But that didn't change the fact that the song did nothing, which is weird because this was directly following LMFAO's massive success and he still had all his industry connections, his name was still huge, but somehow this song was completely underground. I don't know, I never heard it. Then we move on to 2013. Redfoo released Let's Get Ridiculous that year, and again it did play off the success of LMFAO, very similar stylistic choices. The music video even followed the same sort of formula that the group's popular videos did, where it would start with the prologue and it would follow this goofy storyline the whole way through. And that one did okay, especially in Australia, because he'd signed up as a judge for X Factor Australia, and so Redfoo was kind of making news there rather than other places in the world. And then came what I would say, and what the numbers I think would say, would be Redfoo's biggest solo hit, which was New Thing. You could be my new thing, just in case you couldn't remember hearing it, thought I'd sing some for you. I'd say that song did come close to the success of LMFAO's hits. It performed reasonably well on the charts when it was released in 2014, and I think it did help that it had a stint as being like a viral song on TikTok. And it didn't fly as high as say like Party Rock Anthem, Sexy and I Know It, but we were at like champagne showers levels with this. I think the music video accrued like 450 million views on YouTube, and it is a catchy song. It got around. And about the song and like his musical path, Redfoo was quoted as saying, it will always have a bit of humor and the sexiness. I might not be curing cancer, but what I am doing is consciously doing my best to spread happiness as an entertainer. I want to make people feel good. But then also in 2014, Redfoo came under fire for kind of doing the exact opposite of that and actually making people feel quite bad. Basically, he was on this song. It was called Literally I Can't by Playin' Skills, and it featured, Redfoo obviously, and then Little John and also Inertia McFly. And that song caught a lot of flack. It got really heavily criticized for being sexist. I obviously cannot play you Redfoo's section, but I'll read you the lyrics. It goes, Redfoo, yo, we in the club, we bottle poppin', we sippin' that bubbly, we party rockin', you got a big old butt, I can tell by the way you're walking, but you annoying me, 'cause you're talking. Shut the fuck up. And there's more. It continues, bounce on the pogo, jump on the jackhammer, get low, low, low while I Instagram ya. Shh, don't talk about it, be about it, work it and twerk it, and maybe I'll tweet about it. They'll read about it, and you could be winning. I said, jump on the pole. I didn't mean your opinion. Girl, I'm sipping on this drink. I'm trying to see what you got. Not trying to hear what you think. I can see why they called Sky Blu the lyrical mastermind behind LMFAO, because that, I mean, if you're going to be a dick, at least be clever about it. It's good to see that Redfoo was keeping up with the times though, because at least he went from referencing Twitter all the time to referencing Instagram, so he kind of is following the trends there. Now, as far as like his handling of the backlash went, he did try to stand up for the song, because he said, you know, it's satire similar to the LMFAO stuff, and he also said that it was just another example of critics victimizing an artist by purposely misinterpreting his or her work to support a pre-existing agenda. And then he tweeted these arguments. He said, the word slut never appears in the lyrics of Literally I Can't. He said, I love and respect women and feel they are the most powerful people on this planet. And we made a comical party song to satirize the cliche Literally I Can't. Some get it, some don't, but even with those defenses in place, you'll be surprised. The song still did not go down well. And it also didn't get much attention, fortunately or unfortunately, however you choose to look at it, because honestly, it was just kind of like a shitty attempt at recreating the success of Selfie by the Chainsmokers. If I could play it for you, you'd understand immediately, but I hope you can picture what I'm talking about. I mean, go check it out if you want. But it's like they tried to recreate Selfie without really understanding why Selfie was such a popular phenomenon. Part of the reason being that it kind of appealed to everyone in the sense that it was relatable, it was everyone's experience, and everyone could kind of appreciate how silly it was. Whereas in this song, they were like, women are too loud, they're to be seen, not to be heard. And then they were surprised when they got backlash because half of the market, right, couldn't relate to the song because it was shitting on them. I don't know, definitely an oversight there, I think. But then next year in 2015, Redfoo released another single. This one was entitled Juicy Wiggle. And this was, okay, so I think LMFAO's, one of their songs was featured in the Alvin and the Chipmunks Chipmunked movie. I've seen that, but I haven't confirmed it. But this song, Juicy Wiggle, his second appearance in an Alvin and the Chipmunks movie. This time it was in the Road Chip movie. I did confirm that one. So yeah, interesting choice. But unfortunately, even though it did appear in this movie, the song Juicy Wiggle did not perform nearly as well as New Thing did commercially. At this point, Redfoo's stint on the X Factor Australia had come to an end. He had to go on Dancing with the Stars, but he was voted off literally right away. And I think at this point, he was really just slipping from public consciousness. And his music, I guess, wasn't really strong enough to continue the fight to the charts. Do you know what I mean? It couldn't fight its way back because Redfoo needed that hype that he was carrying from LMFAO, but it was like dying in his arms. It was getting harder and harder to resuscitate. And this is when we reached 2016. So finally Redfoo released his debut solo album in this year. It was the Party Rock Mansion album, which of course this was right around the time that Sky came out with that statement about how he felt that he was very much mistreated as the second half of LMFAO. But tragically for him, and probably joyously for Sky, Redfoo's solo album sold all of 144 copies in its first week, which is pretty pitiful, isn't it, compared to the success that he once knew. And he kind of acknowledged, I guess, at this point that he'd come to the end of the road when it came to music. Well, it's not like he publicly came out and was like, I guess I suck now, I'm leaving, bye. But just similarly to Sky, we last heard from Redfoo musically in 2017. He released his song Sock It To Ya, performed about as well as his debut single, so not very well. And that was it. Now, the last video uploaded on his YouTube channel is from July of 2023, and it's entitled Long Live Party Rock Sack Knoll Remix. And I mean, it sucks because you can tell that Redfoo did really enjoy being LMFAO, you know, and he really truly did love performing, and he still does. Like, he takes every chance he can to get up on stage and rock a party. He loves attention. Like, he was born to be a star, but he just played it wrong, I guess. But maybe that's for the best, because like I said, Redfoo has been everywhere doing everything. Man of many hats, I said right at the start of this video, and I wasn't kidding. Like, this man is like a sponge. He loves to learn. He loves to do things. So I'll just give you a little rundown of everything that I know that he's been up to. So first things first, he kind of started making YouTube videos a la Jojo Siwa almost, possibly following in the footsteps of Mahogany Locks, but that didn't last for an awful long time, and so he dropped that, and then he picked up an obsession with coding, and that kind of lent itself to, you know, how Redfoo loves to have freedom in his life. He basically thought that with coding, his opportunities were limitless, and so he wanted to allow himself to have those skills. So he got really into that around 2017. He's been living a very different life since then than, you know, the party rock lifestyle that we knew him for. But even though he's not really in the spotlight anymore, he is still doing interviews, getting his name out there, and smaller bits, like bite-sized pieces of Redfoo are coming out. And he also still has an official merch store. It's called partyrockmerch.myshopify.com, and he's selling stuff like this Vegan and I Know It shirt, which does make me a little concerned that he's going to catch another lawsuit for encroaching on 303's I'm a vegetarian and I ain't fucking scared of him intellectual properties, but I'm sure he'll be fine. He's also still selling sort of LMFAO adjacent merch, although you could say, oh, because he released his Party Rock Mansion album, it's actually just referring to him, but like he's selling these long live Party Rock baby onesies, stuff like that. And just with me saying that Redfoo was selling baby onesies, you can probably tell that he's very much in a completely different chapter of his life. Like he's come a long way from being the guy that was like, oh, I'm single for good, I'm putting my work first, I'm married to my work, love partying. No, at this point he's got a kid, he's got a wife, his party rock days are very much behind him, well and truly. What kind of? Like he's in his party rock kids era. He never quite lets go of the party rock shtick, but it's evolved with him. But in a sense, I think that's kind of why, to me, it feels like everything he does is so random, because he just stuck to his brand so desperately for so many years, and he kind of still is, but then he's also been switching himself up so much that it's like he's a whole new man. So it's very like confusing. It's like, oh, he's still doing this and that too. Interesting. But to be fair, it's not like his persona change kind of came completely out of left field. I think it was a while in the making, and you've got to imagine like he's been maturing a lot. Time has not stopped for Redfoo. Like he's gone from being in his 30s to his 40s to his 50s. But even around the time that Juicy Wiggle came out, apparently, well, this is what his mum wrote on Instagram. His mum said, remember, Redfoo has always been on the path of good health and diet, going back 9 years when she wrote this, when Juicy Wiggle blasted around the world promoting vegetable and fruit drinks with or without alcohol. She said, you gotta love that Juicy Wiggle video fueled by great music and dancing and juice mixes. So the signs were there and we just missed them because we just weren't looking, I guess. But he was going through changes. He was turning and facing the strange changes. Sorry, I'm so sick of talking. It's been 3 hours. I'm just trying to get through this now. But his mum, Nancy, Redfoo's mum, has this momfoo.com website, and his blurb on there reads, today he is an animal and environmental activist with a strong interest in coding, day trading stocks, 3D printing, tennis, and promoting plant-based foods and sustainable gardening. Stephen is currently raising his first child, Illy Oak, with longtime musician co-writer Jasmine Alcori, who also manages their menagerie. Is that how you say it? Menagerie of rescue animals on their Malibu vegan ranch. Both can cook up anything. And I fear that he may have named his child Illy, standing for I love you, as some sort of homage to LMFAO, standing for loving my friends and others. But that's besides the point. It doesn't matter. Although listen, on that note, I do want to say, this is something I want to share with the world. Growing up, we had a cat called LBY, and he was called LBY because I said no to every single name my mum suggested, and she finally gave up and said, should we call him Little Buggy? And I said yes. I was like 2, okay, so I didn't know what I was agreeing to, but yeah, LBY. Vets called him Libby because they couldn't put full stops in their naming section, so it was always, is Libby here? And I honestly couldn't imagine him with any other name. He was such a sweet, grumpy cat. It fit him very well. But anyway, in this new phase of life, Redfoo is married to a chef, is what I've seen that she does. And they both seem to be very passionate about the same sorts of things. So they're very into healthy vegan eating, as can be seen in their Party Rock farmhouse video on unchainedtv.com. Very fun watch. I mentioned he got into coding, and since then he's released this AI chatbot app. It's called Dr. Only Plants. Apparently it was designed to assist others in adopting and maintaining a vegan lifestyle, complete with cooking tips and recipes, all completely free. And he's also put out a children's book in collaboration with his mum entitled Lil Redfoo's Ridiculous Adventures. And I must say, with lyrics like I'm running through these hoes like Drano, I can't believe that he hadn't started writing children's books earlier. Obviously his calling. But in all seriousness, the book actually has good reviews. Not many reviews, but the reviews it does have are good. And I guess the mission of Redfoo and his mum is pretty wholesome. They say, our mother-son team goal is to create books and tools to enhance children's health, ethical enthusiasm, planet awareness, neighborhood and involvement for all living beings. And of the contents of that book in particular, they wrote, beautifully illustrated by another mother-son team, Rhonda Holland and her son, Brandon. The fun lyrical rhymes written by the celebrity team is a keepsake book, and upon request can be signed by the authors. Music is provided by a QR code that leads to Redfoo's popular music video on YouTube. The colourful book supports the author's beliefs in animal rescue, solar power, plant-based diet, and positive thinking that leads to dreams coming true. A book for all ages. So I can't deny it sounds creative, it sounds unique, and it sounds like a good investment of their time. Sounds like a good way to be using their name. I've got nothing against that. But also in this new era, unfortunately, Redfoo is making AI slop content for Instagram, so that could be improved. The world could do without another Fronuff episode. But incredibly recently, like November of 2025, he's broken that mold a little bit. Redfoo partnered with Doug Evans to give out 600 servings of sprouts for free at the West Hollywood Farmers Market. And honestly, again, that seems like a perfectly good use of his time and resources. Good for you, Redfoo. That's all good. And now for the real plot twist, this is what hooked me the most, other than the children's book. I was like, really? And the party rock baby onesies. Actually, yeah, no, this was all interesting, but this in particular. So you may remember that I mentioned that Redfoo, he was super athletic as a kid. He was into like soccer, basketball, maybe baseball, he mentioned. Tennis, of course. Wow, about tennis. He has been casually playing during his adult life, even coached a professional tennis player, dated a professional tennis player, played a professional tennis match, etc., etc. Well, he's really gone back to his roots as far as tennis goes. He is playing professional tennis. Like, I'm being dead serious, and I know it would sound so quirky and weird if you didn't know his background, but no, it makes a lot of sense. Redfoo has been involved with the International Tennis Foundation for actually a while now, maybe since like 2016, judging from the outlines I could see, but you can see some of his stats from 2021 and 2022 online. Looks like he made his professional tennis debut in February of 2025, and he also played in July of 2025. And listen, he's not exactly smoking the competition, he's not earning lots of money, winning lots of games, but for one, that doesn't necessarily make someone a bad player. And for two, he is in his 50s, or I think he's just hit 50. So like, I think we can cut him a little bit of slack for being a professional sports player at that age, where normally you kind of age out of that pretty quick. Like, athletes tend to retire quite early. I don't know if he's doing it because of his connections or because he's actually good at tennis. I don't have the faintest clue, but all I know is that there's this video of him playing against a 24-year-old player. I think his name was like Jonas Forty? I'm trying to remember how I heard it pronounced. And listen, I don't know much about tennis, but Redfoo was putting up a fight. He's definitely got the grunt down. And commenters were just showering him with praise about this new venture. They were saying things like, this is quite possibly one of the most awesome things I have seen so far. Someone said, as an advanced 34-year-old player, it gives me hope that I can also play at a high level one day. Gordy has a career prize money of $192 so far, is what they ended with. Someone else said, this is absolutely impressive for a 49-year-old. Another comment read, total respect that he is trying to succeed in something he clearly loves and wants to get better at, even at 49. The last time I could see that Redfoo himself posted about tennis was September of 2025, so I'd imagine he's probably still going at it this year, and I think that's really cool. To be fair, I think it's cool that Redfoo is out there doing what he wants to do, regardless of age, regardless of his history. You know, he's still allowing himself to indulge in his passions of sport and competition and music and being a public figure. He's just kind of doing whatever he wants, but he's also setting a great example for his daughter in terms of, you know, chasing his dreams, being healthy, caring about his wellness, and he still has a magnificent head of hair to boot, so I'd say he's doing quite well for himself, to be fair. And there are some adoring fans that sort of pop by his Instagram and they root for an LMFAO comeback. Like, there was this guy who said, bro, please get back with the other person from LMFAO. The world needs you guys back. Please do not let the legacy of LMFAO end here. You're the best, bro. And others I saw, they were like reminiscing about what they thought about his very short-lived career in the music industry as LMFAO. They were saying, I was probably 5 or 6 and now I'm 18 and the song is still a banger, talking about Party Rock Anthem. They said, you're a legend, man. I hope you've had an amazing life and continue to prosper. Another one said, bro dropped 3 bangers and dipped. But if you look underneath the surface, there's a lot more to it, really, than the 3 bangers that made it to the mass public consciousness. And Redfoo, he is still performing here and there. It's not like he's completely ditched music for good. He's even got this partnership going on with Zumba, which I must say makes a lot of sense considering the outfits and the music. And as we've seen, he is also keeping the legacy of LMFAO alive with merch and catchphrases, children's books, all that stuff. That Redfoo image that's so heavily associated with LMFAO is still continuing. But there is a bit of a shadow over it, in the sense that Sky said basically that he got the short end of the stick in every way possible, and now he's living this quiet existence, presumably not profiting off of the brand. And meanwhile, Redfoo continues to reap the benefits from that joint venture. But like I said, they've been pretty quiet, all things considered, for the past couple of years, so maybe they've got an agreement now. I mean, they're family. Maybe it's all ironed out. We don't know. And thankfully, I'm so happy to be able to say this. That's all I know. And that's all I ever want to know. I spent 15 hours researching LMFAO, and another 3.5 hours speaking about them. So I am quite frankly LMFAO'd out. I cannot LMFAO any longer, but I do have to edit this video. That's gonna be rough. No, I love it. I love it. It's fun. I'm excited. Anyway, what did we learn today? What are my takeaways? First, nepotism can get you places, but it can only get you so far. You still have to be able to captivate. You still have to be intriguing. You still have to have a good personality if you want to have a positive career, I suppose. Second, be careful doing business with family. I'm so done. I'm hungry. And I'm done. But I hope this video helped you sort of zone out from life for a little bit. I hope you enjoyed your time listening to me yapping and yapping and yapping and yapping about LMFAO. I love how in-depth you guys allow me to go on these videos, because I think it's great to be able to talk about someone from the very beginning. Like, what shaped them? Why did they make the decisions that they make? I think it humanizes people a lot, and I think it adds to the depth of these stories where, like, I mean, I don't know, I go overboard and I know I do, but I've seen like 10-minute videos covering this and I'm like, there is so much more to it. I don't know, I think I'm rambling. I'm just trying to explain why I talked for so long about this and why I actually did enjoy it, and why I hope you did as well. Anyway, I have got to go. My brain is fried. Like, I have cooked my brain cells doing this. So I really appreciate you being here. Truly, truly, truly I do. I hope you're doing well. I hope that life is treating you all right, and if it's not, then hang in there, because it'll turn around. It always does. And yeah, just take care of yourself, take care of the people around you, be kind, because you never know when someone needs you to be kind. You never know what someone's going through. And yeah, I hope I'll see you again, maybe in my next video or on my Talia Is Not Old channel, where I talk about stuff that does not make us old at all. And yeah, okay, thank you, bye. Oh no, bro, my camera battery didn't die, but my camera still turned off. That's just the way it goes on this channel, I think. Here, I'll turn the camera back on to say goodbye to you. Bye. Typical. I'll see you later. Bye.